We've done it again. Glory be and mercy me. We've done it yet again, haven't we, Milo? My pretty little guy looking down on me right over here. So, what did I do today? I've done capitalism all weekend, right? Capitalism, capitalism, capitalism. And today was no different. Worked a shift down at the cafe that I work at. It's a beautiful cafe. I'm getting quite concerned because less and less people are coming. And every time I'm in any kind of service job, it's the same story, right? People aren't there. People are shuffling their feet, being like, "Oh, why is there a business? Oh, the business is down." All that kind of stuff. And they make up all kinds of excuses. Today it was, "Oh, it's hot, and there's also rain. It's keeping people away, and all that kind of stuff." I know, Mr. Milo. Come on out, buddy. But the truth, right? The truth that nobody wants to talk about, the truth that nobody ever actually discusses. Nobody's got any goddamn money, right? I don't care how hot it is, how beautiful it is, how this, that, and the other thing it is, right? Nobody's got any money. You got 60% of the society saying that they're struggling to pay their bills. Hey, Eric, how you doing, bud? Good to see you. Hope you're feeling better. I know that you were reporting positively last time. Hope that trend has continued for you. And so what happens? Nobody's got any goddamn money. Well, nobody comes and buys stuff then, right? Nobody comes and buys stuff, then that means nobody's got any hours, right? The only solution these business guys are coming up with is just reduce wages, right? Reduce all that kind of stuff. Well, then guess what? Nobody's going to come work your job. Guess nobody wants to work anymore, right? And so what's happening? All of these businesses are shifting their business models, right? They got to raise their prices, right? Because the only people who actually have money have a lot of money, right? That most people now don't have the money to come out and splurge it on some this, that, or the other thing, right? Everybody's getting broke, right? Nobody's got money. Nobody's got, all their money is going to rent. All the money is going to the bills. All the money is going to the basics, right? And the idea that people are just going to, oh, let's go down to the local coffee shop, let's go down to the local pub, let's do all this stuff. Well, guess what? Nobody's got any money. So nobody can do that. And so the response from the business class has been, okay, well, some people are still coming, i.e. the people who still have the money, and they're starting to realize, oh, these people who have money have more money than they know what to do with. They've got more money than they know what to do with. So we can charge them whatever we want. And so while we're chasing people out of the market because they can't afford the goods, well, those people couldn't afford the goods in the first place. So now we're catering to people who do have this ungodly amount of money, which means that you're starting to see like regular normal pastries, like a donut for $10, right? You're starting to see like the most absurd price points for regular stuff. Chocolate bars are steadily going to become like $10. The $10 will become the new dollar, right? If you want to enjoy like a pizza, right? A pizza that used to cost you $15, now you're spending $40, right? And steadily, only a small group of people are going to be able to get access to even the most basic of goods. Why? Because the rest of us are spending all our money on rent and groceries. You know, the phone, the internet, right? The basics. And it's only getting worse. Eric's saying, I tried to do some yoga today. I was doing fine until I did the downward sloping dog. Went for a walk, been exhausted ever since. Hey, incremental, bud. That's a good change. That's a good change for you, bud. I'm glad to hear that you were able to get and do some of that yoga, right? You're building your energy. Sunscreen is expensive. Of course sunscreen is expensive, right? Yeah, the loonie will go the way of the penny, right? And eventually the cash goes away too. Why do you think they're talking about these digital currencies? Right? Why do you think they're still pretending? Good to see you, Barnabas. Good to see you, Major. Yep. Look, and the whole reason that they're doing these digital currencies, right? The whole reason that these digital because from any perspective you look at it, digital currencies are a disaster, right? Like, there's literally no reason to have a digital currency. It's the worst idea humanity has ever come up with, ever. Period. There isn't anything even remotely close. Good to see you, Compton. Like, literally, what you are saying is we are going to take non-renewable energy resources. We are going to spend those non-renewable energy resources in order to maintain a currency that we could easily maintain with just paper or a ledger, right? But we're going to do it electronically instead. So we're going to burn all of this energy in order to keep all of this stuff up and running, right? Yep, I saw that article. We'll talk about that later, Eric. I've got it up on the tabs here. Yeah, I'm leaning pretty heavily on the Discord today, because the Discord, if you are listening to this and you don't know how to get into my Discord, you just donate $1 to the Patreon, gets you into the Discord. Lovely followers and lovely people, continuously uploading information, continuously uploading all kinds of stuff, keeping the conversation going, keeping the conversation alive, attempting to connect with one another, attempting to organize, attempting to come to events and things as they come through. That's the key. And I know that there are people in the chat right now, and there's people in the Discord who have started coming out to events because of it. So the system works. The system works. We are planning the revolution. That is what we are doing here. And it is a slow and a steady process. And I'm very grateful for the people who are involved, and I'm very grateful for the people who are donating. Very grateful for all of the action that's coming along in regards to all of this. Because it is just simply getting obvious that the system is consuming itself. The phrase that I just continuously find myself thinking over and over again is, you don't need to follow the laws of a society that is destroying you, right? Like, you don't need to follow the laws of King or Prince John. You don't need to follow the laws of Voldemort. You don't need to follow the laws of Darth Vader. You don't need to follow the laws of Lucifer. You don't need to follow these people's rules, right? Our society has abandoned itself and has abandoned its basic principles. Had a conversation just the other day. Somebody who's trying to convince me that, like, I'm being flippant and dismissive because, oh, well, this society, you know, that's how you're getting your food and your shelter, you know? And I just was like, you mean the fucking bare minimum of what defines a civilization? You mean the absolute basics? Like, literally the only... If your society is not providing food and shelter, then you don't have a society. Straight up. And it's getting to be that that's where we're headed. And it's just ridiculous. Now, is there anything left that we're able to make ourselves and not depend on making a trip to the store? I mean, and the whole point is to make you dependent, right? All of these libertarian loser types being like, I don't want to be dependent on the government. I prefer to be completely 100% dependent on psychopaths who I can't do anything to prevent enriching. Like, that's essentially their narrative. It's ridiculous. Yeah, I'll just cover my skin outside. Yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do, right? Like, it is, like, there is a day coming soon in our lifetimes where going outside without any kind of covering or sunscreen means that you're gonna get burnt immediately, right? Like, instantly. That I don't think people are prepared for that kind of reality, right? Of stepping outside your door and having sunlight come across your skin and it actually burning your skin, just like right away, you know? And those sorts of days are coming. Rain and cooler here after a week of hot, humid weather. Glad to hear it, Nova Scotia. Yeah, out on the East Coast, I imagine that the ocean would have a cooling effect. Good to see you, Anemone. What? I was thinking the other day, Anemone, you do digital art. Yeah, what program are you using? I see your stuff on TikTok. You're real good. It encourages me. It makes me want to do some drawing and all that kind of stuff. I just don't know what you're doing. FYI, CBS just released a preview of a documentary that's releasing soon where they acknowledge that 70% of weapons being shipped to Ukraine don't make it to the front line. Yeah, I've been seeing that kind of stuff. I don't really have any good news on Ukraine, but essentially what I have been seeing is basically confirming what, like, all of the people say. if you hear something and it's been accused of Russian propaganda, well, it turns out that that's probably right. And like, yeah, 70% of the weapons aren't making it to the front line because Ukraine itself is an utterly corrupted state, right? Like, Ukraine doesn't really exist anymore as an idea or as a concept, right? Like, the Donbass territory is under Russian control. There's nothing stopping that from happening, and it doesn't look like Ukraine is going to see any successful counter push or anything like that. The question of why are the Americans fighting so hard then in Ukraine to kind of keep it that way is as simple as, oh, I had it. I really did. I had it in front of me and it disappeared. Isn't that right? The United States, yeah, here you go. U.S. corporations own around 30% of Ukrainian arable land, right? And they want to keep it that way. This, to me, is actually the number one, like, if anybody is confused as to why this war is still ongoing and why the United States is fighting as hard as they can, and et cetera, on and on it goes. This is it. Like, there's no mystery here, right? Like, the United States' plan of confronting this climate change reality is just to exploit and plunder as much as possible. That's it, right? And they want to keep this land. They want to have this land, right? It's why Bill Gates is buying up all the farmland in the United States. They want to have this land. They want to be princes, right? They just want to keep it. And they know that if they have access to the food, if they have control of the food, then they can control you. They own you, right? If they own the food, they own you. Because if they want to starve you, they will. And it's pretty clear they do, right? It's pretty clear that they do. I mean, you take a look at what's going on in the housing market. What, you think they're not going to do the same thing in the food market? If they realize that they can make 0.2% of a profit increase by creating a famine, they will. Very straightforwardly. Like, one of the things that I'm really beginning to notice as I'm looking around in the society is that people really do not want to acknowledge that we are ruled by psychopaths. Like, I know that I say this a lot on this channel, and I worry that people think I'm trying to be dramatic, that people are that the listener is hearing somebody who is trying to, wow, he's just trying to get clicks, and he's trying to just like drive attention. He's just like saying such an outrageous, extremist, wow, what an fringe position, right? I think that this is the only rational position that remains in the world. That the ruling class have gone completely psychotic and are perfectly capable of doing any of the worst possible things that you can imagine a group of people are capable of doing. If they realize or compute or do any kind of calculation that says, oh, we gain more power, wealth, prestige, position, or whatever by having 1 million people die in a famine, they will 100% do it. They will 100% do it. They are psychopaths. It's the reason why I talk about it. And I see people asking questions about, like, well, what's going on in the world? And literally it's like, oh, like, you just don't understand that these people are psychopaths. Like, we've got to get people faster to this point of realizing that it isn't that we have mistakenly fallen into this thing. It isn't that we've blundered. It isn't that we've done a strategic error. It isn't that we've made a mistake, right? It isn't any of that. It's that the people who rule us are perfectly aware of what they're doing and how harmful it will be, and that's what they want. That's what they want. Like, and until we actually get to that point that we recognize we're ruled by psychos, then we're just going to continue being ruled by them. Because we are still going to insist that they will respond to rational, reasonable thought. We're still going to pretend as though we can put paper in a ballot box or something. and they're going to respond rationally to that, right? There's people are still playing this game that, well, surely they must respond to reason. No, that's over. That's long over. They will never respond rationally because they are psychopaths. And in my view, it is black and white. Like, it is clear as it could possibly be. I don't know what evidence a person needs to see. I don't know what a person needs to see. Just gonna say it, nerd counterculture doesn't deserve Sandman, period. And haven't seen enough of Sandman yet. I saw the first episode. Sandman holds a very special place in my heart, so I've been very tentatively going into Sandman. Already, I'm a bit like, I wish they had have made bolder decisions. Really, like, so far it looks like another Marvel movie, right? Like, that's really what it seems like. It looks kind of just like another Marvel thing. They went and got a bunch of people from Game of Thrones and cast a bunch of like recognizable sort of people, and they're also doing that diversity thing where they cast people who are off the original cast race or gender and all of that, which is very in vogue right now, but by and large I feel is cynically done, and I feel like it kind of distracts mainly from the art itself, but I haven't seen all of it, so for all I know it's just like winding up into being like a really kind of cool thing. We'll see. Sandman to me was a very formative and important piece of work, and so I've been deeply skeptical of it since the outset. And that's probably why I'm talking the way I am about it right now. Like, I feel like if I was just like a dude who's like, Sandman, I guess, I don't know anything about it, it's probably fine, right? It's probably fine. But like, for example, the character of Morpheus himself, I'm like, I sort of expected them to make him somehow inhuman, you know? Like, in the comics, he's very inhuman. Like, he is not a human being. He sort of has the form of a human. He's the pieces are in the right place, but they're not correct. They're always a kilter. They're always a bit odd. He always seems a bit stretched out or unusual, like in his presentation. Whereas this Sandman's just a guy, right? Like, he looks fine, right? He's got a good voice for it. But at the end of the day, he's just a dude, right? He's just a guy. So I'm like, and I'll report in as I watch more about it. Even villages give housing and food, exactly, yeah. I literally hate so much of the level of conversation that we have in the society is discussing whether or not food and shelter is a basic human right. Yeah, right? Like, weird that if you stand up and say, like, hey, people should have access to food and shelter, that should be a basic part of living in a society. You're just a commie, and that's 100 billion dead. The Vizula on iPhone, no iPhone. Like, it really is, like, that reduced in terms of intelligence. Like, we're monkeys. Right? We're monkeys. That's all. And it really shows right now. It's really showing. I use Procreate. Thank you. I've been drawing my whole life. It's very cathartic. I'm glad to hear that, man. I'm glad to hear that. That's how I know I'm not actually like a drawer or an artist, is that for me it's like pulling teeth. Like, I'm happy with the outcome usually. I'm like, look at it and I go like, oh yeah, cool, I did that and that's nice. But the process of it, I think I literally would rather remove a tooth than do it. It's not enjoyable for me. It's not enjoyable for me. So I admire the people who do it and find pleasure from it. My head from the neck up is already charred, or my torso is still pasty. I look like I'm wearing an executioner's hood. Some BDSM gloves. Hilarious, dude. Winston Churchill had his own famine the West never talks about. Yeah, exactly. I was listening, but don't you know, Barnabas, that when communism experiences a famine or some kind of negative event occurs, because that's life and that's humanity, then that's an indictment of all of communism, and the whole premise of communism falls apart because of this one negative event that happened in the space of 2 years in one place, one time. But if it happens in capitalism, well, that's just that individual, and you can't indict the entire system because of an individual and the individual's perspective, right? That's how it's all talked about. Because again, we're monkeys. Like we don't like to think about things. I was listening to an interview in the New Atlas channel where the guy was saying that there's literally only 2 fortified defenses for the Ukrainian forces. And also I was listening to a Russian ambassador where he stated that the planning to have trial at the end of the war, and he argues that the reason the prison was recently blown up was that the neo-Nazis trying to hide evidence so no one will speak out against them. Yeah, I suspect all of that is true. Like, I look forward to the trials. I think the trials will be very illuminating. Although the West's perspective on the trials will be, A, don't report on them, and then B, it'll be, oh, they're just show trials, right? That's what they'll say. Meanwhile, the entire rest of the world, like the majority of the world's population, will be like, oh, these were like Nazi tribunals, like these were Nazi trials, like they put Nazis on trial, and here's the Nazis, right? And it'll be very obvious. It'll be very overt. No one is going to be able to deny it except Americans in the West, because we're so fucking thick, and we're too childish and stupid, which is why our culture is collapsing, right? It's like we're just a big baby that stood up too quickly and now we're falling over. People can't put themselves in another's shoes anymore. Yeah, the I got mine attitude. Soylent Green made of people. Does he have his iconic glowing orbs inside his dark abyss eyes? They sort of do that. Like, they do that every so often, right? Yeah, I just... My biggest concern about Sandman is just that it's becoming, like, another Marvel thing. It's just like another... Like, I'm watching it and I'm like, this feels very much like Morbius. You know, very much like another Thor movie, just another Marvel thing, you know, instead of being like what made Sandman so excellent and so above all the rest of it was that it was so unique, and the art was so much more excellent, and the choices that were made were bold and powerful, and there was a lot of quietly powerful moments where it literally was just Morpheus standing there in a situation, and it was his power was obvious, and I just feel like all of that, just from seeing the one episode, I'm like, yeah, they're undercutting all of that so that they can like do just more Marvel schlock and for like quote unquote mainstream appeal. I feel like there was probably a ton of decisions. I feel like there were a ton of decisions that were made so that like people who are just jerking off to Avengers will be like, oh yeah, cool, another Avengers thing, like another one of these, right? And it makes it worse by a lot. Like they could be making like really strong choices and really bold choices with a character like Sandman. Like, he could be like a CGI, constantly shifting and moving. Like, he could very easily be like yeah, I agree with that, Content. The whole diversity thing you just got to let go of. And at the end of the day, like, the actors that are doing it are doing a fine job, right? There's no, I don't have a complaint. My complaint about the whole diversity play is that it always, at this point, it feels cynical. It doesn't feel like they're genuinely doing it to genuinely explore anything interesting or artistic. It doesn't feel like they're doing it to be like, oh hey, here's a question of like, what does this mean if we like. I have involved myself, like when I was in university, we did these things. We took plays that were all male and we changed them into all female characters and asked and really examined and asked the question, did this change this? Was this different? What did this change? Right? You do Shakespeare, right? You cast different races and different people and different stuff, right? That happened all the time. but it was always done with this sort of idea of exploration and the exploration of culture and exploring race relations and gender relations and tropes and ideas, and it's done in many cases as a way to break down assumptions. It is like a form of Dadaist expression where you're just like smashing away and trying to intrinsically find out what makes this character this character. Does it matter if this character is male? Is that actually crucial and important? But now it doesn't feel like that's why this is being done. Like, it feels like it's being done from a very cynical perspective. Just literally, like, if we do this, it will get more butts in seats. And the minute it doesn't do that, the minute it doesn't get more butts in seats, they'll stop doing it. It's already starting to happen. You see DC Comics, they did a race-swapped version of Batwoman. They made like a Batwoman movie, and they race-swapped the character, and they're starting to realize that that's not driving people to theaters anymore, and in fact, it might actually be alienating people. And so what have they done? They've scrapped the whole film. Like, really think about that. They, like, made a film that exists, right? And they just scrapped it. So it's already happening. Right? If you're worried about certain choices that have been made on the show, the issue is that it's been modernized. There's a couple of things that couldn't be done due to copyrights. Yeah, I mean, and they made some decisions about it that I think were done. Like, they took a lot of different characters and sort of amalgamated them. Right? Like the Corinthian, for example, it seems to be a much more prominent character than he was in the books. That they've taken a few different characters and they've just sort of amalgamated them underneath the Corinthian, which I'm like, that I think that's a good play. Like, I think that makes sense from a writing perspective, because they only have so many episodes, right? But I think if at the end of the Sandman show, my big statement is it's another Marvel thing, I think that's the most that's the harshest critique I could ever give it. That it's just more Marvel stuff, right? Because the beauty of Sandman was that it never was that. It was intrinsically its own thing, and it was intrinsically experimental and like intrinsically divergent and trend setting in its time. And the idea that it's coming out now and it's just kind of like Spider-Man might as well come in and be like, oh, hey, Sandman, right? Like, might as well. I'm a bit like, yeah, okay. Like, why did you make this? What's the point of making this? That's kind of what I'm looking at right now. But we'll see. My cynicism can be overridden. The beginning of pop culture was cynically white-centric, so yeah. If we want to talk about this forced diversity thing, then it shows that a lot of it's going to be cynical, but rarely was pop culture genuine. Yeah, that's actually true too. Like, I mean, how much of, hey Watson, how you doing, bud? How much of white culture, like how much of our culture is literally just stolen from black culture? Like, literally, like, black people are doing jazz, and so we steal it and do our own thing, right? Black people are doing rock and roll, and so we steal that and do it, right? Rap. Like, I mean, over and over and over again you see this, that, like, new cultural phenomenons come out of black society, and the white culture just steals it and uses it themselves. It happens over and over and over again, right? And the idea that we're going to, like, we're never going to stop doing that, you know? White culture is never going to stop doing that. It's who we are, and it's how we work. All right, let's go through. One of my favorites, I'm starting to really like this guy. What's this? Masses UTD, which I think is United. Cost per cup, Starbucks, 2021 profit, 20 billion. Profit, larger cup plus larger profit. Rent, staff and corporate, taxes, cup, milk, coffee. 2 Starbucks employees, so they can afford to pay us a living wage and still be billionaires for doing nothing. Rent is $1,500 a month. It'd be nice to have cash to live or invest with. Hey, that's less than being homeless. Yeah, homeless folks cost $6,000 per month each for the services and aid cities provide. Wait, instead of spending millions, then why do we just house people? Breaking news. The poor exist to scare the shit out of the working class. No touchy. Yeah. Like, people are starting to figure it out. That we are paying more to keep people homeless than it would cost to house them. And the reason we are doing that is because our rulers are psychos and leverage homeless people against the society, right? That homelessness is not an unfortunate thing. It is a purposeful structure of the system to threaten people with. That's the reason it exists in the society. And there's no difference. Sankaris Renault. Don't you think that's a bit cynical and divisive way to look at it? I think Steele asserts that there's no respect or homage. I mean, I don't think there has been a respect or an homage, Sankaris, in the history of white people taking black culture, right? Like, I'm trying to think of like the cleanest example I can possibly think. Like, white people will throughout history, like, white people have literally stolen songs from black people and just redone them, outright pretending as though we made this. Like, rock and roll is a really good example of this, where, like, Elvis Presley didn't do an homage, right? Elvis Presley wasn't respecting or giving an homage to, like, the black culture that created rock and roll. He just did it, right? And the people around him profited from it. And like, we don't care. Like, white people don't care. We're not sitting here being like, well, we've really got to pay attention to where this came from. Like, not really. Like, we're just trying to tap our shoes, right? Is it cultural appropriation, or is it done because it enriches a certain class through culture? I mean, it's kind of both, isn't it? Right? It's kind of both. That, like, there's, like, there's not really anything, like, white people don't make culture. Like, we suck at culture. We're very bad at it, right? Like, our culture is basically Christianity, rooted in deep sort of theological and theological traditions. It's why we all we do is essentially reskin gods and, like, secularize them, and then continue the whole cycle of worship, erecting, like, fascist justifications for why we're the best. Like, this sort of ridiculous bullshit that we constantly do all of the time. But at the same time, like, who are the gatekeepers in all of that? And how do they control that process and that and maintain their power through all of that? And the maintenance of power through theater and art is a tale as old as time, right? Like, in Shakespeare's day, right? Like, William Shakespeare, the story of William Shakespeare is straight up that he was writing these plays and producing this stuff, and then I think it was like in 1560 something or whatever, no more plays were produced. Why? Because theater was banned. They literally banned the theater. So it just ended. Why did they ban the theater? Because the creators of theater were starting to realize that the cultural power that they had in the populace was starting to matter more than the church and starting to matter more than the monarchy. That they were starting to have actual conversations and actual discussions about what was going on in the society through theater. And people were starting to ask themselves pretty serious questions about what is the nature of the church, what is the nature of the monarchy, what is the nature of all of this, because of the plays and the theater and the culture that they were pursuing. So it was just banned straight up, just like, no, you can't do this anymore, it's over, right? Like, that that whole process and so, of course, powerful people are acutely aware that that theater and art and all of these things have a deep power to them. It's why our culture works so hard to destroy artists and to ensure that they're co-opted or suppressed. That you can never actually produce anything that challenges the power structure in any meaningful way, right? And if you manage to, then you're shoved off to the side and completely alienated, right? I think you have X-ape fatigue. I've read all of Sandman. I don't know what X-ape fatigue means. If you want my opinion, the show is more a Mirror Mask production than a Marvel movie. That Marvel claim sounds way off. I've only seen one episode, right? So we'll see. You might be right. I hope you're right. Straight up. I hope you're right. Like, I would rather you be right in this one. Because my skepticism is high. It's very, very high for this. I think cultural appropriation itself, well, and let me be very clear, the reason why it's high is that it's not like Star Trek or Star Wars where I've given up on it. Like, they literally can't produce anything now that I think will make me think the series is serious anymore. Like, they've betrayed it too much, right? They've made it very clear that they're not interested in making Star Wars or Star Trek stuff. They're not interested in it. That they just want your money. It's just they're gonna slap names on it and then make something and call it that. But they're not actually interested in making Star Wars or Star Trek or any of this stuff, right? They're not actually interested in making like a Matrix 4 and actually do something good. They literally just want dolts to meander into a theater and be like, that guy's name's Kirk, so it's Star Trek for sure. Ha! Spock did the thing! Like, that's what they want. Right? And they don't want people who are going to be in there and be like, so what social issue are you talking about? So what important cultural issue are you discussing now? What adult conversation are you going to have? How am I, the viewer, actually going to grow from having watched your piece of art? And the people making it, if you actually talk to them this way, they'd be like, in this one, Kirk gets a laser that he shoots and it makes it go pew pew. Like, this is fucking childish bullshit. And so I've given up completely on Star Wars and Star Trek. I literally don't think they're capable of it anymore. Even if they wanted to, which I don't think they do, but even if they wanted to, I don't think they're capable. And so here's Sandman, which I think presents a lot of powerful ideas and a lot of interesting stuff. And I'm kind of sitting here being like, okay, like, are you actually going to present an adult story told by adults to adults or, in order to grow a person so that when they view it, they actually feel as though they've learned something or they've moved somewhere in their life? Are they a better person afterwards than before? Right? And I'm still hanging on to the kind of hope that Sandman is going to do that and it's going to actually maintain its integrity in that way. But I gotta tell you, after that first episode, I'm like, okay, looks like just Marvel bullshit to me. Looks like, Thor's gonna come down with his hammer and just, like, zap people with lightning and shit. Right? It's kind of what I'm expecting. So if it's not that, I'd prefer it. I much prefer it. I think cultural appropriation itself is used in a very cynical way. Elvis and Eminem grew up in black neighborhoods. Poor as shit. Yeah, that is true, actually, Sankaris. But I think what's important is that it's bigger than those individuals, right? That we can kind of point at them as examples, but that the concept of cultural appropriation is bigger than them, That, like, Elvis could not be Elvis if he was not white, right? That, like, Eminem would not be Eminem if he was not white. That white culture will only accept these forms of culture from white people. That's the larger critique. That if Eminem was a black dude, I mean, he might be important within that industry, and he might hold a place of prominence, certainly, but he wouldn't be Eminem, right? And I think the same is true of Elvis, right? That he wouldn't. He might be considered a good artist, and he would have a place and all of this, but he wouldn't be fucking Elvis. Right? Like, people still do, like, Elvis conventions and shit. Like, it's crazy. cultural divisions are done deliberately to maintain social division that aggrandize the ruling class, yeah, you're going down the identity reductionist, postmodernist rabbit hole here. I mean, I'm just telling you my experience from from theater, right? That in theater, I don't even know how to respond to this. Identity reductionist, postmodernist rabbit hole. I don't really like postmodernism has never really convinced me it's got value, so I don't really care about it. The stupidest thing that I saw last weekend was DeSantis removing Disneyland's status as being an independent nation. Yeah, I didn't realize they had such a status where they monitor their own employees' underwear, not because of the authoritarianism of Disney, because they want to regulate Disney wokeness. Yeah, no, Disney's creepy. Like, people don't get how fucking creepy Disney is. Disney's fucking creepy. Like, they want... If you work for Disney in one of these, like, establishments, you have to adhere to, like, a Disney code. And if and that Disney code controls huge sections of how you live your life, right? And it's very, like, they would call it family friendly, would be the phrase that they would use, right? But it's creepy as shit. Like, the fact that they give a fuck about people's underwear, like, it's creepy. And Disney has become a very creepy organization, in my view, and is deeply, deeply, deeply cynical, like deeply cynical. That and you'll see it happen in real time, guys. Like I don't know how to like prepare people for it. You're gonna see it happen in real time. That all of the quote unquote wokeness, right, and diversity plays and all this kind of stuff will stop making the money, and so they'll stop doing it. And what will start making the money? Fascism, right? And so they'll just do it because they don't care. Like they don't actually care about any of this, right? They're just presenting a morality that they think will encourage people to give them money. And if that morality doesn't give them money, then they'll change it, and they'll change it to whatever morality they think will get them the most amount of money. And you'll see the shift happen. It'll happen in real time. Where literally 1 year it'll be like, yeah, girl power and like power to diversity crowd and all this kind of stuff, and then literally it'll go white power. It'll happen like just like that. And when they do it, they'll release pressers like, you know, for too long men have been ignored in the media, and we're responding to what white men have been demanding, and here's a character we can all love, and it'll be like, you know, fascist Joe or whatever, right? And all the men will wink off to it. I think that's an alienating way to view white culture. If you go through proper rustic America, for example, there's a culture. I mean, I grew up in like rural Manitoba. Like, you pick your poison, right? It all comes from somewhere else. Right? It's never come from like white people. It's always like brown people or Latinos or black people, and we just take it. Right? And that's true of like country music, blues, bluegrass, like all of it. It all comes from a different culture other than white culture. It's what we've always done. It's how we've always done stuff. Right? Because we're not creative. It's why we use slavery and like and pick up hammers and shit and beat the shit out of people. Like we're not smart. Like we're the opposite of creative as a people. We like the white power structure uses violence primarily. And if you're basically just a dumb thug walking around with a club, being like, we're the greatest country in the world, right? Like if that's the way you communicate, then the only way you can gain any kind of culture is for the people who actually do produce culture. You just take it. That's how we always have done it. It's how we've always done it. And if that's cynical, then too bad. Like that's just the truth, right? White people don't make art. We steal it. I agree that white libs in the city represent anti-culture, but the peasantry and proletariat proper have their own way of life that is distinct. No, and that's true. It is their own way of life that is distinct, but it's also rooted in a culture that was never theirs in the first place. Like, I'm not even white, but I also thought that it was divisive how white people have to strictly amount to nothing. Like, I mean, like the like, there's something deeply fundamental about what I'm talking about here with the culture, right? That we are a culture. The reason why white culture cannot create culture, or the reason why white society can't create culture, is because that requires a type of self-analysis that we don't have, right? And to me, it is actually this simple. It is actually this simple. That that if you want to actually pull something out of the self and produce some kind of art, it requires self-analysis. It requires, at the very least, putting yourself in a position to make yourself vulnerable, to humble yourself to a process of creation, right? And to allow energy to come out of you in a creative process, right? White culture cannot do this. It is incapable of doing this. The capitalist structure literally can't do it. If it tried, it would cease to be this way. Because in order to actually produce these sorts of things, you have to be interested in a process of self-reflection and growth, right? And for all the talk of capitalism being interested in growth, they're not interested in growth, right? They're interested in profit. They're interested in destroying and consuming as much as possible, right? And so all you can do is just take someone else's work and show it to people who've never seen it before, right? And you'll find the more you investigate this, the truer it gets. The more you look at it. Pick anything. Pick anything that exists in white culture. And you'll be like, oh, they like literally, like one of the big cultural phenomenons, right? The Lion King. Something that like swept the nation, and they've made musicals of it, and it was a huge movie, made them $1 billion, all this kind of stuff. Literally is a shot-for-shot recreation of a Japanese anime from the 1960s called Kimba, King of the Lions. You can go online and you can find it and you can see it. It's a shot-for-shot recreation. Like, we can't make anything. We don't know how. And most importantly, we're totally disinterested. Right? Cape fatigue. I don't know if it's cape fatigue. Like, I wouldn't... Part of the issue I do have with a lot of this Marvel stuff is it's just the same movie. Right? Like, that to me is the most frustrating part about the whole story of Marvel and DC and all this kind of stuff. It's just the same fucking movie over and over and over and over again. And it's like, it's not that I'm fatigued with the superhero genre. It's just that I don't think it ever had anything interesting to say. You know, like when it was first coming in, it would tell these like pretty basic stories. And like case in point, like we have gotten to a point now where nobody tells origin stories anymore because we know what the origins are, right? That's not fatigue. That's just literally like, okay, like we got it. Like we know the story. Like, yes, Uncle Ben dies. Got it, right? Like we don't need to see Batman's mom and dad get shot again, right? We don't need to see and any of this shit, right? We don't need to see any of this shit. Like my complaint about what's going on in the superhero genre is that by and large, it's not telling interesting stories. There are some interesting stories that are happening within it. The Boys is an interesting story, right? Like it's actually attempting to answer the question of like, what would this look like? You know, what would it look like if there actually was superheroes, right? And it just admits on the face of it that like a guy like Superman would probably be a psycho, right? Like he wouldn't care about anything other than himself, really. And the the West, including Canada, isn't the best at anything. Now my real feels is that I do think the show honored the source material. However, I would not be surprised if Netflix cancels it, but I'm glad that this was done at least for one season. Yeah, I'm hoping that it turns out for the better. We'll see. I think I just I feel like I'm looking at a lot of safe choices when I wanted to see the opposite. I wanted to see big, bold, like, just outrageous decision making that makes people go like, what the fuck? Like, that's what I was hoping for. But we'll see. There's still time. There's still lots of good stories in the Sandman lore. Are we talking about Western white people specifically? I mean, it's a white power structure, right? Like, it's a white supremacist power structure. So the of course, white people are mainly involved in it. But, like, I know, like, when I was living in Manitoba, right, it's primarily a majority white community, white culture, right? Like, we didn't care about fucking Tupac. We didn't give a shit. Didn't matter, right? We had heard of these people, but, like, it wasn't until Eminem showed up that people were like, oh, rap, right? Like, it's a real phenomenon. Like, it exists 100%. It's why I say capitalism is a pyramid scheme. And people get their panties in a bunch about copyright and plagiarism. And, yeah, no kidding, eh, Ligandies? Like, copyright and plagiarism, are you kidding me? I hate copyright. I hate copyright. Plagiarism makes a certain degree of sense because it's like, use other people's stuff but give them credit, right? Like, if you use something that someone else made and you're like, hey, John made this, then people are like, oh, okay, cool, not plagiarism. But if you take it and go, I made this, that is plagiarism. So that makes a certain type of sense. Copyright makes no sense at all. It's such fucking total bullshit. It's hackneyed nonsense is what it is. It's just a way for people to calcify the culture and kill it. Milo, buddy, there's nothing there. There's nothing there, dude. Like, a big issue that I have with copyright is that it's just done so Disney can keep control of, like, Mickey Mouse, right? So that you can't just use Mickey Mouse and whatever, right? And it is a way to chase away smaller artists and to ensure that nobody can actually use something. Like, if somebody wants to tell a story about Cinderella, too fucking bad, right? Like, even if you do skirt around the laws and you actually do get in there, you got to face all of this legal challenge that Disney can just, like, boom, can just fucking nail you with. And even if it does go your way, they'll bankrupt you. They'll just destroy you, right? That's the entire reason why copyright law exists. Like, it doesn't exist for any other purpose. It exists exclusively so larger fish can eat smaller fish. The superhero genre is simply diversionary mind candy that's profitable for the movie producers. Yeah, and there's a lot of nostalgia porn in there too, right? Like, we went through, like, a pretty big nostalgia moment with remakes and redos and superhero stuff, basically just plundering our childhood, right? Like, just take all of our childhood shit, like another Transformers, another Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like, I'm surprised I haven't seen a Sailor Moon, Power Rangers, like anything that you saw when you were 14, right? Just got dredged up and put in front of you. And in my view, it serves two excellent purposes. Purpose number one, it completely calcifies the culture. You can't grow. You're stuck in this state of perpetual childhoodness where you walk out of theaters going like, yeah, that thing I saw when I was 12 was great. Like, so you're stuck as a child constantly. You can't actually learn or grow. You can't challenge anything. Nothing is challenged. You're just living your life in order to wait for another one of these schlocky bullshit things to come so you can sit in a theater for 2 hours and forget how shitty everything is. But you know, you learned as much as a 12-year-old as you did today, and probably less, honestly, because a lot of these movies are just so hacky and bullshitty. And then there's also just like, if you dominate, like Disney, last year Disney made 80% of the market, right? Like, that's a monopoly. If you own 80% of the market, right, you don't really want to create anything that changes any position or opens the door or wedges things open, right? You want things to be calcified. You want people to feel as though they can't go anywhere else or do anything else, because then they have to come to you, right? And you're the one producing the big shitty stuff. You're the one producing the big, like, blockbuster stuff that's capturing the attention of people because it's, oh, did you see the explosion? Wow, did you see it when they blew up the Empire State Building for the 58th time? Western white culture pretends Jesus was white. Yeah, no kidding. The only superhero genre I like is The Boys, and it would look exactly like The Boys. Yeah, The Boys nails it on every level is what I mean. Yeah, like, someone like Homelander, right? Like, he's completely just a selfish, narcissistic psycho. The culture that exists around him is a corporate one that exists only to make money for itself and to ensure its own power structure, right? Like, I don't know why people... Like, the thing that's going to be terrifying about something like The Boys is that, and I've said this before, eventually Homelander is going to be presented to us as a hero, not a villain. And we're going to... And I see this actually, if you actually pick up a modern Superman comic, right? If you pick up like a modern day Superman comic, Superman looks a lot closer to Homelander than he did in the past, right? He looks a lot closer to Homelander because Superman has realized that, like, oh yeah, like, humans are corrupt, they do shitty things. The only way to kind of maintain control or to maintain order, if you prefer, in the world is just by taking control. And I'm like a superpowered god. What are they going to do? Right? Like, that is the ethos of the modern day Superman, which is a huge reason why they're struggling with the Superman script. Because they don't want to present Superman for what he is, right? That for a while they were able to show Superman as this sort of naive, like, iteration of American justice and goodness, right? Like, that he represented America, and so for a while they could show him as pure and good, fighting for truth and justice in the American way and all that kind of stuff. But it's gotten obvious that that's all bullshit. Like, looking back on those comics during that period of time, it's obviously propaganda. Like, it's obviously bullshit. You can't possibly believe that America represents these values or cares to represent these values today. It's not possible, right? So how do you make a movie about a character who is those values, and that's all he's ever been, in a society that literally doesn't believe them anymore? Not only doesn't believe that Superman doesn't represent America, which represents those values, but doesn't even believe in those values anymore, right? Truth? Do you think America cares about truth? Justice? Do you think America gives a fuck about justice? Right? The American way, what the fuck is that even? Like, the American dream has been blown apart. So how do you tell a story about Superman? Because he doesn't, the whole premise, the whole character has been completely demolished and undercut. And so all you're left with is fucking Homelander. That's all you're left with, right? When it comes down to it. And eventually the society will become so decrepit and evil and demonic that Homelander will be presented to us probably as Superman. They'll probably make a Superman movie. It'll probably be Homelander, and we'll probably be told, here's the hero. This is a hero. And a lot of fucking dumb idiots, a lot of these stupid monkeys are going to walk out of the theater being like, what a powerful hero who we should all venerate and love, Superman. Wait for it, man. It's coming. I thought I was intelligent. You are intelligent, Adam. I've had more than one conversation with you. You're an intelligent man. I often, watching your show starting late, watching 1.5, moving the mouse over the time, see how far. Today I saw the clock. I'm confused. That's okay. I don't think I understand, bud. Japan really needs to stop sucking up to America. Yeah, they can produce far better content. The West don't really respect them. Yeah, that's true. Japan's interesting in this regard, right? That, like, the whole anime, the whole process of anime and the development of anime out of Japan was really, has been really fascinating. And what's really cool to see about Japanese anime is that it's just getting sharper. Like it's now it's getting to the point where like the people who are making the anime know that there's lots of, or the people who are backing the anime now know that there's lots of money in it and there's lots of this kind of stuff, and so they're really allowing artists to push the envelope in big and interesting ways, and clearly allowing them to spend a lot more time, energy, and money making this stuff than they did in the past, right? That, like, you look back at the 80s and the 90s, anime then, it was good, right? Like, you think about, like, when we were making, like, Transformers and G.I. Joe, this very stilted, like, oh no, everybody, we've got to go! G.I. Joe! Dun, dun, dun. Like, they were making Dragon Ball, right? Like, at pretty much the same time, right? Like, when we were making, like, X-Men and Spider-Man cartoons that were a level up, but still very stilted and very, like, frame hold and, like, very much just, like, have the picture with the mouth move. Like, they were making Pokemon, right? Like the Japanese anime has been way ahead of what has been produced out of the West. And what's crazy is that it's still way ahead, right? You take a look at the animation and the stuff that's coming out of Western society, and it's still good. Like, there's good stuff in there, don't get me wrong, but it's not even close to what's being produced now. That the stuff that's coming out of Japanese anime now, I'm failing to come up with a really good example. Here's a really great example, actually, of a show that, like, its storytelling isn't, like, revolutionary. You're not going to watch it and be like, wow, my life changed, right? But it's a movie called Red Line. Here's the plot. A guy wins a race to be able to go race in an intergalactic, illegal underground race set on a planet called Robo World, and the citizens of Robo World don't want the race to be set there. That's the whole plot, right? Very easy, very straightforward, but every single shot is just as ramped up as it can possibly be. Like, it's not enough for them to, like, show a racetrack. They've got to show a racetrack, and there's got to be, like, dust blowing down the course, right? Like, it's not enough for them to show, like, the face of a guy smiling, going like, huh. He's got to have, like, a sparkle effect on him or something. Like, every single shot is just tweaked up another amp, another level. And then even more, you can see another guy come across it and be like, how do I amp this up again, right? And I feel like anime is in that spot, that it hasn't yet been completely destroyed. It will be. And I shouldn't say that, actually. There's a lot of occasions in Japanese anime where they continue producing stuff for money, and it's always shit. So Bleach is a good example of this. Bleach was a show that it's considered like one of the big three. For its time, it had like more viewership than anything else. And the author of the manga that it was based on, well, the show caught up to the manga. And so the show just said, oh, we'll just do a season without him. We'll just make our own thing up. And it's utter trash. Like, it's utter trash. Like, so bad that it's completely decanonized. That if you know people who are like, I'm going to give Bleach a try, I think it's season 2, literally skip season 2. I was told skip season 2, and I didn't, because I was like a purist, and I was in film school, and I was going to take it seriously. Boy, do I wish I had skipped it. It was horrible. It was so bad. And that's capitalism, right? Like, that if it hadn't been for this stupid moronic profit motive, they would have reached the end and been like, okay, cool, we'll wait until the artist creates more art, and then we'll continue on with this process, right? But because they needed to churn more garbage out, they did. They churned more garbage out. That's all it was. It was just total trash. And eventually, Japanese anime will become like that. Just like Disney, right? It's just going to take... you're going to see, like, an era of like Dragon Ball Super Extreme Extra More, Goku times 48, right? Like it's just going to be another iteration of something you've already seen, right? And they'll go through a period of time where they'll do like a Bleach live action series, right? Another Death Note live action series, a Dragon Ball live action series. That'll make it better. That's better now, right? Come and see the same thing you already saw, but done worse, right? And like remember when you were a kid and you watched Dragon Ball and you loved it? Well, we remade it as a live action. Bring your kids and try to convince them that this isn't like. They're doing a live action of Avatar: The Last Airbender. And I gotta tell you, like, even if they do it right, even if they try to do justice to it, which they never do, right? They're just shitting these out for money. Even if they try to execute on it and try to do a good job, it's not gonna be nearly as good, right? It's not even gonna be close. Because the entire reason why we watched this thing in the first place was because it was what it was. And so... this whole live actioning of stuff is just a way to con parents into sitting down with their kids and showing them this thing that they loved when they were a kid instead of just watching the original thing again, right? Like, and it just keeps happening over and over and over again, where our culture is just destroyed in front of our eyes over and over again. For nothing. Yeah, what's funny about The Boys is that the show is better than the book. Yeah, because the book was just like a premise, basically. Like, the book itself was just like, not really... they never intended it was going to be like this, you know? It was primarily concept-driven, you know? Which is like, what would superheroes look like if they were here? Well, they would kind of look like this and kind of look like that. There wasn't like a big studio or anything. It's just some guy who was just sort of brainstorming, mainly. Like, I've taken a look at The Boys, the comic book, and I was really like, oh yeah, like the original The Boys really did, it does read and it does feel very much just like a brainstorm session with, smart writers and all that, but just a brainstorm session. And then they just kind of drew it out. I'm still waiting for a Freak Brothers movie. I don't know what the Freak Brothers movie. Yeah, One Piece Film Red was released in Japan in just the opening weekend. They made 2.2 billion yen. Yeah. Most of the isekai genre. Yeah. Alright, guys. So, first things first, hit you with an ad. Ads inserted. And then I'm going to pause for a minute because I have to pee. So, sorry about the dead air. Dead air, dead air. Dead air, dead air. Of course, it's so hot. I'm like so stinking sweating, so I'm like drinking way more water. All right. Moving on. Average list price for a unit of insulin. This is actually what kicked me off in the earlier rant about like the psychopath culture, right? $6.94 Australia. $7.52 UK, $9 France, $11 Germany, $12 Canada, $14.40 Japan, $98.70 United States. If Republicans have an intellectual argument against cheaper insulin, I'd really love to hear it. You know, it's so funny that these guys are pretending like they don't know what the argument is, right? Like this is the thing that's killing me right now. Right? We're still pretending like these people aren't crazed, right? Like, they have an argument. They've told us the argument. The argument is very straightforward. We have to purge useless eaters. That's the argument. Okay? That if a person is weak, needs help, needs to be supported somehow, the best thing for us to do is to eliminate them. And if we can exploit their weakness in order to make money for ourselves, all the better. And if they then can justify their existence to us through effort of their work or toleration of our exploitation, then they have proven to us that they are worth living. That's the argument. And pretending like there's something else going on is very odd to me. It's a very strange society we live in, where people can tell you what they think and tell you what it is they're fighting for, and you simply don't believe them, right? Because it's too horrifying. That's what it has to be. Is that there's people in the society who just refuse to acknowledge that it's possible that these people can be this horrible and this horrific. Guess what? Here they are. I've been saying it over and over again on this channel. I'll say it over and over again until I die. These people are worse than the Nazis, because even the Nazis weren't trying to destroy their own children and their own society and their own culture. Like, they want to spread misery. That's what they want. There's no other explanation, and they'll tell you. Just talk to these libertarians. Talk to these libertarians for 10 minutes, right? And you're gonna find a whole group of people who are walking around saying, yeah, if you can't pay for insulin, right, at whatever rate we, the gatekeepers of insulin, say insulin is worth, then die. And that's their argument. Like, and it's time for us to take it seriously. Not even the masterpiece live-action film adaptation of Cats? Only joking, I haven't actually watched Cats. Dude, I love that people, like, really went after Cats and, like, really shit on Cats. I'm just like, dude, like, it's Cats. Like, it doesn't matter at all. Like, if you sit down and you watch Cats, and it doesn't matter, right? You've already bought in to the like, if you're sitting down to watch a show called Cats that is literally about cats being absurd cats and doing absurd cat things, right? And you have a bad time, I think that's on you. Straight up. Like, straight up. Like, it never, unlike this Marvel dreck, and unlike this Disney garbage, it's not pretending to be anything other than what it is, right? It's never pretending to be anything other than just cats fucking around, straight up. And so, I just am like, I've watched people do like really big critiques of Cats, and I'm just like, you're missing it. You're missing it. It's just about cats, dude. Like, it's just about people doing fucked up things and being fucked up. Do some mushrooms, watch Cats. You're gonna have a great time. You're gonna have a great time. Yeah, it's not pretending to be anything other than that, right? It's honest, exactly. And like, if you look at the movie and you think this is stupid as shit, I'm gonna hate the shit out of this, then yeah, probably. Probably. I used to live around the corner from the Banting House. Very good. Very nice. I never watched Cats. I have watched literal Cats, however. There you go. I feel like sometimes listening to this show must be like a bit schizophrenic. I'm like literally like, we're dominated by psychopaths who are coming to destroy us. You know what, Cats? The musical Cats was a great experience. You know, it's just cats gallivanting around. You'll have a great time, right? Now back to the psychos. Watson. Yeah, speaking of, right, something that's not being well reported, right, the occupational state of Israel has declared war on Gaza, calling it Operation Dawn. So, We've got yet another initiative going on in the Israel-Palestinian conflict. Of course, no one's talking about it. Nobody gives a shit, right? It's just become normal. Just the banal reality of what it is. Jagmeet Singh warns Justin Trudeau their deal is dead if no dental plan by year's end. This is actually an interesting development. Probably the only interesting development in Canadian politics that has happened, a long time. Even the last election wasn't that interesting a development. It was worth analysis, but it wasn't an interesting development. This is interesting because it finally is showing that the NDP, I'll bet Trudy is shaking in his boots, but it's finally showing that the NDP are at least feeling the heat from their own people, right? That, like, Jagmeet Singh has promised, like, this absolute bare minimum. That, like, literally when I talk to NDPers, their response is this, like, sigh with a, like, I mean, at least we're getting dental care. At least we're getting dental care. If Jagmeet Singh doesn't deliver on this dental care promise, right? If dental care doesn't come in, if a regular citizen can't go to the dentist and get a cavity filled, right, and have it be on the government's dime or whatever, through the healthcare system or whatever, right? If that doesn't happen, Jagmeet Singh is finished, right? There's no other way to say it. It's I'm blown away he's lasted this long, given the abysmal results of his previous elections, right? Like, literally, he's gone through 2 elections now with no gains whatsoever. Just straight up, like, total, just nothing. Just absolutely nothing. And he's still managing to survive. And so now he's finally, after all of this, just like, nothing, touting a promise. And we all know how this goes, guys. Like, the Trudeau Liberals are not gonna... They're not gonna deliver on this. That's not how the Trudeau Liberals roll. They don't deliver on things. They're not trying to help, right? They're not interested in this. They're not interested in actually delivering on pharmacare. They're not interested in dealing on dental. They're not interested in climate change. They're not interested, right? They're interested in fooling you into thinking that they're interested, but they're not actually interested, right? And their whole strategy is to con you into believing that they're on your side at all, and then pointing at the Conservatives and being, well, at least we're not the Conservatives. You know, it could be worse. You know, it could be worse. You could have the Conservatives. That would be way worse, is the Conservatives. And with this unassailable defense, they convince a bunch of gullible rubes, it could be worse. Could just be Conservatives. And there is no, like, internal reflection ever of just like, oh, they're just Conservatives. Like, these Trudeau Liberals are just fucking Conservatives. They just, like, every so often throw a dime in your direction saying, we're going to plant 1 million trees and not actually plant them. Oh, yeah, we're going to do something about climate change and buy a pipeline, right? Like, they're just so beyond redeemable. And so I'm glad to see, though, that Singh is actually, like, planting a flag, right? Hey, dental deal by year's end. Like, they can call a vote of no confidence. They can do that, right? Like, if the Singh NDPers turn on Justin Trudeau, they can go with the Conservatives and do a vote of no confidence, and we can have a whole other election, right? And that's actually kind of a threat to the Liberals, right? Because they don't want the Conservatives in power, or they certainly don't want to lose to the Conservatives, right? Because they like power and they like having it for themselves. They're not interested in using it for anything. So we'll keep an eye on this development as it goes down. We could be having an election sooner rather than later. And this is usually how it goes with the minority governments, right? Like, I think the average life of a minority government is something like 1.5 years. They don't usually last very long. And the fact that Trudeau's not responding to the NDP's demands, which are literally just like, hey, follow through on the one thing you've been saying you'd do for 20 years. Yep, maybe Palestinians should put on blue contact lenses and dye their hair blonde more. Hey, there you go. That's what we should be doing, Ligandese. We should be sending care packages of blue contact lenses and blonde hair dye. I think we've solved it. We've solved the crisis. Yeah. The story is written by Athea Raj. Want to see quote-unquote journalist with a crush on Justin? Watch Althea in his... I love that, eh? Like, literally, like, there's... Who are the people who are actually in the media who are actually skeptical of Trudeau? Right? It was always going to be a gamble. Yeah, like... You're right, though, Watson. Like, it does feel like people like this Althea Raj basically are just treating Justin Trudeau like he's her boyfriend, right? And he's not. He's the fucking leader of the country. Like, it's blisteringly shameful how the media acts in regards to Trudeau. Because Singh purely represents the base of the NDP now. Yeah, minority, petty bourgeoisie, willing to pay a ball with the ruling class, exactly. Probably means that the NDP has enough of a war chest to go into an election. Yeah, it's not because Singh grew a spine. I think that's accurate, dude. I think straight up. And I mean, Singh has got to be feeling the heat from his own base. He's got to. Like, I don't know how he, as a leader, is staying in power. Like, it really does. It doesn't make any sense to me, and unless you actually think, and I kind of do think this way, that the NDP is fine being in this position. That they're fine being this just, like, third tier, like, no account, kind of controlled dissent party that is essentially meaningless, right? Yeah, Ezra Levent is quote-unquote skeptical. Yeah, I'm sure he is. Ezra Levent is essentially just a fucking contrarian, right? So if Trudeau says one thing, he says another. That's his whole shtick. And it works to a certain degree because Trudeau doesn't tell the truth ever, right? So Ezra Levent's whole shtick is to try and find a way to spin the lie into another bullshit lie. Because you can never actually talk about what's the truth. That there are owners that the Conservatives and the Liberals and the NDP protect. You can never actually talk about that. Here's a good one. Isn't this a good one? Rainwater everywhere on Earth. Unsafe to drink. Due to forever chemicals. Study finds. Isn't this great? Isn't it great to live in a society that is actively working to destroy itself so thoroughly and perfectly? Right? Like, one would assume that if there was a society that you were living in, rule one of that society would be don't poison your food and water. Right? One would assume that the first rule of any society, right? That, like, you ask yourself, why didn't we write this into our Constitution? That, like, everyone should have access to food and shelter and water, right? And an answer that I actually get from people is that, well, no one's going to do that, right? We don't need, it's just taken for granted. No one's ever going to actually do that. Just like Rubes defending psychos, essentially. Rainwater almost everywhere on Earth has unsafe levels of forever chemicals, according to new research. Pre- and polyfluoroalkyl, how's that for a word? I can't believe they're making me say this word. Per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances are a large family of human-made chemicals that don't occur in nature. They are known as forever chemicals because they don't break down in the environment. They have non-stick or stain-repellent properties, so can be found in household items like food packaging, electronics, cosmetics, and cookware. But now researchers at the University of Stockholm have found them in rainwater in most locations on the planet, including Antarctica. There is no safe space to escape them. Is this just disinformation? Let's find out. Let's find out. That's a good question. I am just sort of, it is a blazing headline. Let's dig in. Let's be skeptical. Where's the study? Where's the study? Rainwater almost everywhere, but researchers at the University of Stockholm. I'd like to see the study, please. It's a good question. There's been an astounding decline in guidelines for PFAS in drinking water for the last 20 years, as well as one known substance, the cancer-causing... Here, hold on. Let's do one better. University of Stockholm. Copy. This. So what... Who finances Euronews? Good question. Who finances the University of Stockholm? Good question. Let's dig in. I like this. This is good. Let's have some fun. Let's do on-the-spot debunking. What the heck am I looking for? Forever Chemicals... Rainwater. That'll do it. Rainwater contains unsafe for forever chemicals. That's from Medical News Today. I'd like to see the thing itself. That's what I'd like to see. Maybe we could get that out of... Known as Forever Chemicals, now a hazard. Now a new study, here we go, reports the amount of blah blah blah. New study was recently published in the journal Environmental Science and Technology. I don't know, but seems pretty legit to me. Abstract. A recent review article in Science highlighted the global threat posed by plastic pollution. This is the introduction. Here, the synopsis. A planetary boundary has been exceeded due to PFAS levels in environmental media being ubiquitously above guideline levels. A recent review article in Science highlighted the global threat posed by plastic pollution. These concerns were based on the high environmental persistence of plastics, the related poor reversibility and range of potential effects. Other researchers, including ourselves, have pointed out similar concerns related to highly persistent, non-polymeric substances, but these concerns are not equally obvious to the public compared to the concerns with plastics. The relatively high public concern regarding plastics is possibly driven by the visibility of plastic waste compared to non-polymeric substances. Clearly, both plastic pollution and pollution by highly persistent non-polymeric substances lead to similar global problems. I don't know, Watson. Seems kind of fucking legit to me, bud. Right? We got good links going on here. Right? The U.S. EPA lifetime drinking water health advisories. It's coming out of the University of Stockholm, being published in Environmental Science and Technology. Right? The journal Science. Right? Corresponding author, Cousins, Department of Environmental Science, Stockholm University. Authors, Department of Environmental Science, Stockholm University. Department of Environmental Science, Stockholm University. So Stockholm University. Maybe we're all suffering from Stockholm Syndrome, though. Huh? We're all just used to the University of Stockholm telling us some things. And maybe we shouldn't. Huh? That is a stupid joke. Yeah. He's originally from UK, living in Sweden. I gotta tell you, bro. Seems legit. I'm just gonna say it. Just like, I think that now it's on you. I think it's I'm handing the ball back over to you and being like, okay, here's my sources. You feel free. Go ahead with the deep dive, because I'm feeling pretty okay. The University of Stockholm. The University of let's go. University of Stockholm. University of Stockholm. Turns out that the University of Stockholm is just like a Fraser Institute kind of bullshit. According to Stockholm University, it's one of Europe's leading centers for higher education and research, so that's good. Let's ask the CIA. A public research in a university, so it's not even privately owned. It's a public research university, founded as a college, university status since 1960. The institution is regarded as one of the top 100 universities in the world by the Academic Ranking of World Universities. What are we never saying, Danarchist? Yeah. I think I'm going to pass the ball right back to you guys. I think I'm just going to be like, okay, I've got the University of Stockholm saying that we got a problem. Yeah, not legit. No. Total bullshit. I call foul. Look, I respect skepticism. I do, especially on a story like this. Right? University of Stockholm funded by Donald Trump and Dennis Prager. Is that true? Is that true? Hold on. Trump. Nothing. Prager. Nothing. Nothing. Yeah, you're right about this, Tinker. You're right about this. This is a slight deviation from what we're talking about, but you're right. That the Scandinavian system will not last to billionaire capital. You're absolutely right. Oh, please don't compare University of Stockholm to the Fraser Institute. I recant, Danarchist. If I have insulted anyone out in the world, I knew not of what I spoke. I lay prostrate in front of you. Oh, please, lovers of the University of Stockholm, forgive me, for I have sinned. Seems legit, guys. I'm just gonna land on that point, okay? Just gonna land on that point. Rainwater everywhere is unsafe to drink. Safe guideline levels for some of these forever chemicals have dropped dramatically over the last 2 decades due to new insights into their toxicity. There has been an astounding decline in guideline values for PFAS in drinking water in the last 20 years, says Ian Cousins, lead author of the study and professor of the Department of Environmental Science, Stockholm University. For one well-known substance, the cancer-causing perfluoroctanoic acid, water guideline values have declined by 37.5 million times in the U.S. Oh my God. Based on the latest U.S. guidelines for PFAOA in drinking water, rainwater everywhere would be judged unsafe to drink. Although in the industrial world we don't often drink rainwater, many people around the world expect it to be safe to drink, and it supplies many of our drinking water sources. What risk do forever chemicals pose to our health? The health risks of being exposed to these substances has been researched widely. Scientists say that they could be linked to fertility problems, increased risk of cancer, developmental delays in children, but others say no cause and effect can be proven between these chemicals and poor health. Despite this, and as result of new research, some are calling for tighter restrictions on PFAS. It cannot be that some few benefit economically while polluting the drinking water for millions of others and causing serious health problems, says Dr. Jane Monk, managing director of the Food Packaging Foundation in Zurich, who wasn't involved in the study. The vast amounts that it will cost to reduce PFAS in drinking waters to levels that are safe, based on current scientific understanding, need to be paid by the industry producing and using these toxic chemicals. The time, she says, to act is now. Captain Planet, He's a hero. Gonna make pollution down to 0. That's what we need, dude. We need a remake of Captain Planet, where he's just going around just murking these guys. That's what we need. We need like the veneer of like yeah, we can do it, but Captain Planet shows up and just murks these guys. He's just straight up like, oh, you literally lit the ocean on fire. Just murked. I'd be totally down for that. Ugh. I want to talk a little bit more about this, Tinker, which is Sweden has some of the highest number of billionaires per proportion. Their Scandinavian system will not last a billionaire capital. Absolutely. It is only a matter of time. Unless there is a communist counterbalance and the legitimate threat of revolution from below, the Scandinavian system can't survive. That the only reason it came into place in the first place was because of those conditions. That you literally had Soviet Russia right there, and the people of the Scandinavian countries being like, they can do it. They can do some things. Why can't we? What's the story here? Right? Why don't we just overthrow this shit and get rid of you guys? Right? And so they were like, ha, okay, yeah, healthcare. Healthcare for everybody. Right? It's the only thing capital responds to. And so if you don't have that communist counterbalance and there is no revolution coming from below, then they'll just eat. That's it. They'll just eat. And so the Scandinavian system will eventually collapse. Right? Sooner than we probably think, actually. The Fraser Institute is advertising on Facebook for providing teachers with material to educate with. For providing teachers with propaganda to bullshit their students with, you mean? Like, no, I'm straight up. Like, I've said it again and again on this channel, and I'll continue saying it. Like, if somebody gives me an article and says, here's an interesting article, and it says the word Fraser Institute in it, and isn't surrounded by words like, the Fraser Institute is full of shit, or proving the Fraser Institute incorrect, like, once again, the Fraser Institute showing its incompetence, unless it says something like that regarding the Fraser Institute, I'm not interested. It's literally a private institution owned by billionaires to con rubes into believing that billionaires should, like, have their cocks sucked 100% of the time while firing rockets at space. Like, it's the stupidest possible institute. Like, you should never believe these guys. Like, it really would be like believing your dog when your dog says, oh, I'm hungry again. Yeah, I'm legitimately hungry again. I should eat again. Yep. 9 out of 10 dogs agree that feeding dogs when they are hungry, when they say that they're hungry, is the accurate and right thing to do. Like, no. Your dog is bullshitting you. He just wants food in his face. Just like the Fraser Institute. Just bullshitting you. It just wants your money. Like, it's just a big con. That's all it is. It's all it's ever been. Right? It's not capable of being anything other than that. And so if I see an article written by somebody who has, like, I took a day course on their CV, and it says, I took a day course at the Fraser Institute, I'm literally like, okay, article goes away. We don't need to pay any attention to them. Like, yeah. What if they turned out to be psychedelic chemicals? Now we're talking, Major. Now we're talking. Everybody must get stoned. Bum, 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 bum. Everybody must get stoned. Yeah, let's fuck them up. Let's fuck everybody up. The Scandinavian system has already been eroding, of course, since the 1980s. The lives of people getting worse and worse. Yep, and the people just want more privatization. That'll solve it. I asked a PhD environmental scientist, and they confirmed that the forever chemical problem is old news. This is just yet another confirming study. Isn't it great, Adam? Isn't it great that we literally can say over and over again, hey, we're poisoning our water. And everybody just goes, you know what's great? iPhones are great. Like, I wonder if any of what is happening is a result. You know how, like, we hypothesized that some of what happened in the Roman Republic was, like, lead poisoning? That people went kind of mad because they were drinking from, like, lead utensils and using lead shit, and so it gave them lead poisoning. And one of the side effects of lead poisoning is, like, madness. I wonder how much of that we got going on. I wonder how much of that is just, like, we don't know what any of this is doing to us. Like, we don't know what any of these, like, radio waves or these fucking iPhones or any of this stuff, we don't know what any of it's doing to us. We're just sort of moving along being like, yeah, this is fine. Completely fine and normal. We have no idea. Like, we could be living in, like, this heightened, diluted state of madness because of all of this shit. And we're just, like, unaware of it. Like, that's speculation for sure. Like, I don't have a study to show you, but, like, if lead fucks us up, one would assume that drinking plastic probably would too. You know? It's not a big leap, is what I'm saying. That's my point. What if they want us to be afraid of it because it's good for us? Holy shit. Yeah, the poised risks forever. Have you heard of the DuPont history where they literally poisoning the local population, where to this day they're denying that they are doing it? I have not heard of that, dude. But that sounds like some fucked up things some capitalists would do. Yeah, totally reasonable environment you got there, kid. Yeah. Scandinavia also turning right-wing because of immigration. Yeah. You know what I love? I got to talk about this for just a second. I absolutely adore that these, like, Westerners can 100% understand that, the Middle East was blown up. We invaded Iraq. We invaded Afghanistan. Syria was in a major crisis, collapsed, right? There's literally a genocide going on here. We can understand that there's turmoil here, right? Even if you don't understand the specificity of it, right? You can understand that there's turmoil here. And you can understand that that turmoil is causing immigration into Europe, right? You can understand that people are fleeing the Middle East, trying to get away. Run as far as you can, get into Europe, and everybody can understand that. But nobody actually thinks that the same thing is happening to China. Like, no one actually pauses and goes, oh yeah, people are probably running into China too, right? There's probably a bunch of people running into China. It just doesn't exist. I know, buddy, I used a silly voice, and it wasn't me all of a sudden, and now you're losing your mind, because who's this stranger? Who's this guy? Who's this guy? This is a guy right here who's a stranger. And Milo's scared of strangers. I actually think that's what's happening to him. That's hilarious. Okay. It's okay, buddy. You're a good boy. That's so funny. And, like, that's how they're getting away with this whole, like, Uyghur genocide narrative. Like, literally, what China is doing is the same as stuff that, like, France is doing. Right? China is looking at Europe and going like, well, what are some things that they're doing that are effective and are working for them? Oh, we could do those things too. And the West turns around and says of the Chinese who are doing the things that the Europeans are doing, dealing with the same crisis that the Europeans are dealing with, that's a genocide! It's fucking ridiculous. Like, it's just gotten baby brainish at this point. Right? And I'm just like, I encountered someone in my real life who actually still buys into this Uyghur genocide stuff. And I just, like, had to be real patient. I gotta be real patient. You know, it's one thing for me to sound off here with you guys on this kind of platform, doing this kind of thing, right? But when I meet these people in real life, I gotta be like, okay, you're a real person who has experienced something. You have had your perception of reality altered by people who have every incentive to lie to you. Let's go, Brandon. In the meantime, Sparkle Socks Cluster Fudge Turdope. DM, man. Dude. That is great. That is just real good word. That's craftsmanship right there. You kidding me? Sparkle Socks Cluster Fudge Trudeau. Masterful. We'll spend the remaining years as PM flying high-powered jets and riding long limousines, yet carbon reduction is our strength. Net zero, sunny ways. Exactly, dude. Meanwhile, carbon emissions have gone up under Trudeau. Carbon emissions went up faster under Trudeau than they went up under Harper, right? The idea that Trudeau is interested at all in reducing emissions is a farce. Always has been. Always has been. The carbon tax didn't change anything, right? this idea that we'll raise the carbon tax and that'll make people use less carbon and then that'll incentivize people to... No, none of that fucking happened, right? People still used it. They just paid it. They just fucking paid it. And it's just as clueless as these people being like, we're going to get rid of the carbon tax and that'll lower your gas bill. No, it won't. You'll get rid of the carbon tax. They'll just keep the price where it is and pocket it. Like, that's what they're doing. Like, let the market decide. Incentivize. Incrementalism. Right? Like, no. We need a war economy. We need to take control of this shit. We need to grab this shit by the balls. I would rather live in a society that was grabbing this shit by the balls and making mistakes than live in this chaotic nightmare shithole of just like, we're definitely going to destroy ourselves with this garbage, right? I would rather somebody take control of it and make a clusterfuck of it than this, right? Because then at least we could say, like, we're trying. Like, we're trying. Like, this is just fucking salesmanship. That's all this is. This is all just selling products. Ugh. Recently, I read an article from the Fraser Institute. Oh my God, I can't believe you managed it. That surprised me when they admit that unemployment numbers that people use are BS. Yeah, that's the funny thing about the Fraser Institute, right? Every so often they tell the truth. Just when it becomes way too obvious, right? Like, the only time the Fraser Institute will actually tell you the truth is when it's too obvious to say anything else. Like, that's like a tried and true strategy of a grifter, right? And you see it happening in the media in regards to climate change in real time, right? Like, you see it happen. Climate change doesn't exist. That's not real. What a bunch of bullshit. Sounds like some sci-fi nonsense to me. Okay, scientists, you can talk, but here's a representative of the oil industry saying the science isn't in. These are the same. These are the same. Okay, climate change is real, but we don't actually need to do anything about it, right? Like, it's totally fine. You know what? You're right. Climate change is real, and we are going to have to do something about it, but we can just manage it, right? Like, it's the grift. Just deny until you can't, and then acknowledge but deflect, right? Just do everything you can to avoid getting to the actual point, which is change, right? Actually do the thing, right? Change the behavior. Shift what you're doing, right? Like, no, can't do that. Get fucked. Go die. Very straightforward shit, right? John, 1, go to the rebel. No. 2, and propose that electronic devices are a WEF plot. 3, watch the chaos. Yeah, dude, they're really about that, eh? The World Economic Forum, like, it's become such a major talking point on the right that I can't ignore it anymore. But, like, you guys know my position on the WEF, right? As a reminder, this is a good opportunity to remind everybody in the chat now that should someone wander in here who is like a WEF stan, we can't just dismiss them. Okay, we've got to actually be like, yeah, bro. Hey, bro, if you think the WEF is crazy, wait until I tell you about Vanguard and BlackRock. We got to get them there. We got to get them there. Cuz, like, I don't really care about the WEF. Like, I get that they exist and that, like, big powerful people go there and have conversations with one another and all that kind of stuff, but, like, such an institution will always exist. Such a thing will always exist. Right? There will always be rich people coming together and having conversations with one another. And my position is I would rather they do that than not. Because I would rather live in a world where these people are at least attempting to talk to one another and figure something out than a world in which they're just smashing wherever they like and saying fuck you to everybody. Right? Which is the alternative. Would I prefer that they don't exist altogether? Sure. But I just don't see the WF and go, oh my God! Like, I go, yeah, like, obviously. It's like when Michael Parenti said in one of his lectures, he was like, people say to me all the time, they say, well, you don't think that people get together and have conversations with one another and make a plan and conspire against the public, do you, Michael? And then I say, well, how else do you think they do it? That's kind of it. It's like, yeah, what do you think they're like? We know. I just feel like anytime these guys get on about the WF, it's like their brains are exploding about it, and I'm literally being like, "What? Did you just get here? Like, yeah." and the thing is that like not everything that comes out of the WEF is bad, right? Because it is just a bunch of clueless rich idiots getting into a room with one another, being like, "We should probably actually think about this and try to actually think about things and solve some problems, don't you think?" And just because they're stupid and clueless and they don't understand anything, because the only solutions that could possibly exist include get rid of you, right? Like, they don't want to accept that, and they can't accept that, so they can't be intelligent, right? They have to be sub-intelligent, they have to be idiots on purpose, because any reasonable solution to any of the reasonable problems they could possibly be talking about, step one, get rid of you. That's the first step. Like, in any solution for any of this. Climate change, first step, get rid of these psychos. Get rid of them. Just get rid of them, right? Build a high-speed rail, right? Something mundane. Build infrastructure. Step one, get rid of the fucking psychos, right? Step one. So they can never come up with anything that's actually going to work. They can never come up with anything that's actually going to do it. But that doesn't mean they're not trying to. They just have to be stupid while they do it. Because they don't want to accept that the first step is get rid of you. Get rid of the people who are actually causing the problem in the first place. Right? Like, their solutions literally are, how do we continue causing the problem while solving the problem that we ourselves are creating? That's the WEF to a T. Right? And anytime I tune in and watch these guys, I don't see a bunch of people going, how do we cause problems in the world stage? I just see a bunch of people who deny that they caused the problem in the first place and are actually trying to solve the problem, but are incapable of doing so because they refuse to acknowledge that they are the ones that are indeed causing the problem in the first place. That's the WEF. Is it like actively malicious? No, I don't think so. But is it like still shitty and full of idiots and psychos? Yeah. But I'm just not like about it the way that the fucking people on the right are. I will dig up the DuPont history. It was great. It was the first article that made me realize that the capitalists, if they could make a profit from someone's death, they would do it. Yeah, without a second thought. Yeah. Like, those guys definitely fucking exist in the conversation for sure. What do you think climate change will do to migration? But migration is going to go mad. Like, this is something that, like, you think that the talking points that the Americans are talking about, like build the wall and all that kind of shit, like, you think it's bad now? You wait. One of the things that people don't understand about migration, right, about people moving in the world, is that it's not like they go and stand in a line at a booth somewhere and fill out some papers and then get in the country, right? They just come, right? It's just post World War II, right? You had all of these people fleeing from Europe into the United States. It was like land of the free. Here's the Statue of Liberty. Oh, let me take your week and all this kind of stuff. But the real truth of it is that they couldn't keep them out. There's no method to keep these people out. If you have like 1 million people, if you have like 10 million people, if you have 100 million people coming across your border, they're coming, right? They're coming, whether you like it or not. And all you can really control is your response to it. And all you can really control is what are you doing to try to deal with that? Because it's always a crisis. Like it's always a major shift. And in my view, the wisest thing to do is actually to build some kind of institution that attempts to say to the people who are just coming into your community, oh, hey, can I show you around? Do you wanna know what's going on? Would you like basic history of what has happened up till this point in this area? Well, how about the local language? Would you like to know the local language? How about some basic skills? Would you like to know how to use a wrench? Would you like to help us out with some welding or something? Right? Real rudimentary basic shit. But the more I think about that idea, and the United States and Canada actually doing it, the more I realize, oh yeah, we don't do that for our own citizens. So fuck them. like our solution is straight up concentration camps on the border. A wall, right? That's our fucking solution. Like we're very stupid. Like we're very, very stupid. That instead of thinking about it in terms of integration, instead of thinking like, okay, here they come, let's actually like have some kind of way to get them in and integrate them and make it all that kind of stuff. Instead of that, we're going to spend 5 times the amount of money to erect a police force to kick in people's doors and grab them and throw them in a concentration camp or something. Like, we're fucked up. We're very fucked up people. It's incredible how fucked up we are. Like, and more and more and more I've been trying to communicate about it strictly in dollars and cents. Forget about the moral implications. These guys don't care about the moral implications. They don't read these books. They don't care. Like, when you realize that we're spending so much more money to make a far worse society, it's embarrassing. It's so fucking embarrassing what we're doing. Like, this place could be cool. We could be cool. Like, we could have a cool thing going on here. We've got all these resources. We've got all this land. We've got all this wilderness. We've got all this wide open places. We could absolutely build a society that's based on principles of inclusion, education, improving people's lives, right? Integration, trying to lower the amount of burden that happens to the average citizen, right? Trying to ensure that when a person is working, it's actually valid and useful somehow. Trying to build a society that's actually a tolerant one, at least a tolerant one, right? A society that's actually interested in building something and creating something, right? We're not even building rail. Like, this is how fucking embarrassing we are. While China is literally building a rail system that goes 600 kilometers an hour throughout its own borders, and then into Russia, into Europe, across the Middle East, into Africa, literally helping Saudi Arabia build a fucking city so that they can build a goddamn rail underneath the Gulf of Aqaba. We can't build a single rail from Toronto to Ontario, to Ottawa. We can't fucking do anything. We suck so fucking badly. And it's for the same reason over and over and over again. There's just some rich cocksucker sitting on a piece of land, right? He was like, oh, I hear they want to build a high-speed rail here, so I'll just buy all the land over here and then charge them 30,000 times the price. Because what else are they going to do? Ha 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 ha! Free market's the best way to organize. Like, shut the fuck up. We're so embarrassing, man. Like, we're so embarrassing. Just like cringy, embarrassing, like, oh my god. Like, if this was a fucking video game, if we were playing a video game, like Civilization, which is a popular video game franchise, the only analysis that you could possibly make at this stage in the game is, oh wow, these guys are fucked. These guys are fucked. A civilization over here has built a powerful enough military that the only edge that we have is our military. It's the only edge we have, right? Is that we have a strong enough military that we can dominate large sections of the globe, right? We can dominate Africa. We can dominate the Middle East. We've lost control of South America, right? We've lost control of South America because our military is powerful, but it can only go so far, right? So we're embarking on this war over here. We're trying to get this fucking thing kicked off, all of this kind of stuff. But we can't stop them, right? We can't stop them with the only edge we actually have, which is our military, right? Then you take a look at what's their edge. I'd say edge number one, they actually have a manufacturing base, right? They actually have a manufacturing base. There is an ambassador from China that is going to places like the WEF. Another reason why I actually kind of like the existence of this institution. That is going to these places, is going to Davos, is going to these guys. And he's outright saying, why on earth did you give us your manufacturing? Like, he's being as open as he can possibly be. He's sitting down with these people, and he's asking very clear questions, like, hey, what have these billionaires actually done for you? What are you actually getting from having these billionaires? What have you achieved by having these guys with these billions of dollars? What have you built? What have you done? Right? What are you getting? And most crucially, why? On God's green earth, did you think it was a good idea, ever, to take your manufacturing base out of your country and give it to us? Do you not get how badly you fucked up? Like, do you not understand how incredibly fucked up that is? That a country would give its manufacturing base to another country. What the fuck are you talking about? And the United States just did it. Because at the end of the day, these guys don't care about the prosperity of the United States. They care about their own prosperity. And they don't give a shit if America turns into a fucking shithole. They don't care, right? Because they're going off to their Jeffrey Epstein sex island. That's where they're going, right? And meanwhile, you got this Chinese guy walking around just being like, bro, like, what the fuck are you doing? And so we don't have a manufacturing base. We can't build anything. We can't do anything. If the Chinese want to turn the lever off, we're fucked completely. Take a look at any of your products. Find anything right now. Where's it made? Is it made here? No. Right? No. Not even close. What's our edge? What's our edge? It's certainly not diplomacy. We've pissed most of these countries off. Most of these countries off. Definitely most of these countries. We've alienated the shit out of Russia. Right? Certainly not China. So, like, literally, like, this whole area is terrified of the United States. So who's their friends? So the United States' friends are Canada, this group right here, this guy, and this guy right here. And maybe you can find, like, little slivers here or there, like Uganda or something. Right? So they've completely alienated themselves utterly. Like, if this was a video game and I was looking at the position that the United States was in, I'd be like, guys, you are in trouble. Like, trouble. Big trouble. Like, what's the Americans' competitive edge? What have they got? What can they do to recover from this? What pivot could they make to actually move forward and build their society up in order to even begin competing with the absolute monolith that is China? That China is going like cha-chunk, cha-chunk, cha-chunk. China is experiencing exponential growth. And the only reason why the West refuses to acknowledge it or refuses to understand it is because the only type of growth that America respects is financial growth. Because America has got its head in its own ass about what actually matters. So it doesn't matter if China has built a rail system. It doesn't matter if China has built a military. It doesn't matter if China has built like a high-speed internet system based on quantum computing. It doesn't matter that China is turning on a power plant that is hotter than the surface of the sun. None of that matters because it doesn't funnel into this dead end of capital called financialization, which is the only thing the Americans care about. And guess what? It's the only thing they're going to get. They're toast. They're fucking toast. And in the meantime, because of all of this, right, what's happening? You've got a literal Nazi movement coming out of America called the Republican Party that's about to take over everything, that's already banned things like Roe v. Wade. It's already banned all this shit. And we're all supposed to just stand there and be like, normal society. This is just how societies are, you know? Completely, totally normal. Totally normal. America is going to go into 100 years of humiliation. It is going to collapse in on itself. It is going to balkanize in big and serious ways. And there are nuclear bombs in the conversation. Once these countries and these states start breaking up, where do these nukes go? Who gets control of them? How do they get out of this without some kind of war? How do they get out of this without an actual war? I don't see it. It seems pretty basic to me that Texas and California are going to go to war with one another. Like, that seems pretty straightforward to me. Like, seems pretty clear that the South is rising again, right? And that the North and the South are going to go to war again. Like, I don't see how they avoid it. I don't know what they could possibly do to avoid it at this point. Because the primary issue that they're faced with is not only are the people who are in power currently illiterate, clueless morons who think a financialization system matters more than a rail system, or food, or shelter, or basic human rights, or any of that, that money is what matters the most in these guys' ridiculous brain space. Not only do they believe that, but the people beneath them believe that. And the generation coming up believe that. So these guys are going to kick off and die, and then the next group's going to take over, and they're going to do exactly the same shit. And all they care about is getting their wealth onto Jeffrey Epstein's sex island, where we can't come at them with pitchforks. That's all. And so the response from the populace is literally just going to be to abandon this shit. People are just going to return to nature. They're just going to get out of the cities, right? Like, if I work my entire life away and I can't even pay rent in these fucking cities, I'm just going to leave, right? Like, that's what's going to happen on a massive scale. And you're going to end up with all of these empty buildings sitting in major cities held by psychopaths who live on islands filled with, like, little girls, essentially. Like, that's where we're going. And I don't see any sign of that going anywhere else. And meanwhile, the Chinese, where are these guys going to be in 100 years? Look at what they've achieved in 100 years. Where are they going to be in 100 years? They're going to be looking down at us from a fucking rear view mirror as they're driving towards a stable society that the entire rest of the world is going to look at and be like, oh yeah, these are the guys. These are the guys. Eventually Australia turns to China. Eventually Europe turns to China. Like, it's written in the stars. Because this is going to collapse, and this is not. Ugh. And I mean, on the climate change issue in regards to China, like, China's very concerned about what's happening. There's an effect that can occur in China called the wet bulb. It's gonna render tons of this territory uninhabitable for like 4 months of the year or something like that. So the Chinese are very, very, like, that's the big reason why they're like moron loser fascists will be like, well, China's the second largest polluter. It's like, yeah, because China's the one that's actually producing all of the renewables. They're the ones that are producing all of the solar panels. They're the ones that are producing all of the stuff that they need for the future, right? They're the ones that are actually producing it. The United States pollutes just by burning coal and moving its military around. So what's China doing? It's building a bunch of fucking solar panels, wind, geothermal, all of that shit that's growing exponentially year over year. And what's that going to mean? It's going to mean that when the negative effects of climate change actually happen, we're all going to be buying that shit from China. Because they're the ones that actually invested in it. They're the ones that actually built it. They're the ones that actually did it. Right? And we're just going to play catch up with these guys. Which basically means that we're going to be sucking on China's tit for forever. Because we don't make anything. We don't do anything. We don't research. We're not smart. We're not even trying to be smart. The DuPonts were major financiers of the Smiley Butler affair. Fantastic. Maybe we can get the right wing to commit to climate change if we tell them hundreds of millions of brown and black people will migrate here. They don't want that, Tinker. That's the whole white replacement theory. They don't want a bunch of black and brown people to migrate here. That'll replace the white race, right? And if you replace the white race, what a fucking loss, right? Oh no, the whites. We've contributed so much. No, they don't want that at all. Like, if you could convince them that those black and brown people will come here, but they'll be in the prison system, right? They'll be in like a literal incarcerated, like, neo-plantation system. Then sure, but so much strife. Gonads and strife. Gonads and strife. Gonads and strife. Gonads and strife. If you know, you know. Speaking of if you know, insert ad. Insert ad. I hate to do it. Somebody's got to pay for this shit. Good opportunity to say like, share, subscribe, hit the button, hit the things, hit the upvote, hit all of it. Let people know that I exist. Let people know that I exist. Give me some money. For God's sakes, give me some money. For God's sakes. Even $1 helps. Gino, good to see you, bud. I remember Biden saying fracking was good for the environment during the primaries. Yeah, they're fucking losers, man. These guys are fucking out of their minds. Like, people who want to convince me that the Democrats and the Republicans are different, I'm just like, nah. Like, they've got different iconography. Like, the Republicans are walking around with a cross, while the Democrats are walking around with a little pride flag. But they're the same. Like, they're the same. They believe in kooky, weird conspiracies. They espouse nonsense. They don't read their own texts. They don't do any of this stuff. They've both paid complete and total fealty to money. That's it. Money is their god. They don't care about anything else. Did you say learn some welding? I did. You should give it a read. Dude, I've got so many fucking articles. Tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. Remind me, okay, bud? WEF, another ruling class organization that intends to do things that allow the ruling class to maintain its wealth and power at the working class expense. Yeah. But the Great Reset is a communist plot. That's the best, man. My favorite is when people are like, the WEF is communist. Justin Trudeau is communist. I'm like, bud. The very thing that capitalism creates by its system is communism. Having the bourgeoisie running society seems like a real conflict of interest. Yeah, no shit. Well, because they keep telling us that they're not interested in running it. That's the thing. Like, what do you think they're saying when they're saying, let the market decide? They're literally saying, don't have a plan, don't make up an idea, don't have a thought, right? Just let these disparate industries do anything they want, and it'll work itself out. And it's doing exactly that. It's doing exactly that. It's working itself out. The earth is going, oh, these guys are not planning anything at all. I guess we'll just poison them. The WF has taken the place of the Freemasons and the Illuminati. Yeah, exactly. And, like, I think the big difference, Watson, is that, like, the Freemasons were, like, way old, and so we don't really take that very seriously. And, like, the Illuminati has, like, a shadowy kind of thing, whereas the WEF is being done very much in public, right? It's very public. You can literally see anything they say. You can just go and read their shit, right? And, yeah, they're nefarious characters because they're rich, right? It's just the, yeah, it is like the tinfoil hat. Like, everything's got to be the WEF and a WEF plan, right? Italian mafia and gangster probably wouldn't be a thing if the West was that generous. Yeah. Good to see you, Chris. Where'd your comment go? Yeah, Christopher De Silva. I love that name, dude. Such a strong name. A good strong like Christian name. Christopher De Silva. I take that fucking name seriously. Anyway, most of the mainland's land is completely unused. Yeah. The Maryland land is completely unused. We do suck. Yeah, we suck. We suck so bad, dude. Like, we literally shit on the concept of planning. Like, really, really think about this. Like, how many times do I need to hear some fucking idiot like Peterson be like, yeah, well, you talk to these lefties and they want to do a 5-year plan, and we all know where that leads. The Gulag! Like, that's literally what they're doing. They're literally saying, if we sit down and make a plan, it'll be a Holocaust! Like, that's what they're doing. It's so fucking stupid. Like, it's unintelligibly stupid. I can't even believe that people don't just openly scoff at it when people do this shit. But they don't, right? Somebody says that and everybody goes, oh, well, what are you going to say to that? What are you going to say to that point? As if it has any legitimacy whatsoever. And you're supposed to stand there and be like, well, actually, I do think that having a plan is probably a good way to ensure that, things that we might otherwise miss and we're actually supposed to defend the concept of having a fucking plan. Like, what the fuck is wrong with us? What the fuck is wrong with our goddamn brains? Well, you can't have a plan. That'll just lead to the gulag. Jesus Christ. What worse, we had a train system. Yeah, instead of updating it, we dismantled it. Yeah, dude. Yeah. Western capital has like the same TikTok attention span as the rest of us. Incapable of long-term thinking. Yeah, and it gets caught up in all like NFTs and crypto, right? It just gets caught up in the most delusional, fictitious nonsense. It's like, oh, I can make a lot of money. I can make a lot of money with this crypto stuff. Yeah, I'm gonna buy this crypto at $10, and then it'll go up to $15, and I'll turn around and sell it and make a bunch of money because crypto is real. It's a thing that matters. Like, my favorite is that Warren Buffett came out recently, and he talked about crypto. He was very clear, right? He's just sitting there being like, yeah, usually when I buy something, I want it to produce something, or do something, or be worthwhile, or have value. Like, straight up, he was just saying this. Like, crypto's not worth anything. Like, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't create anything. It doesn't make anything. It doesn't, and really, if you want, like, a currency of exchange, he literally holds up a dollar bill. Well, I got one right here. You know, you can't tell me why crypto's any better than this. I'm just like, yep, there you go. Right? Get fucked. Get fucked, crypto bros, you stupid fucking idiots. With your dumbass, like, it was always a pyramid scheme. It was always just a bunch of monkeys going, oh, look, it's on a blockchain. Yeah, it's a blockchain. That's a ledger that everybody can see, and so it's good. And everybody can use it. So what you should do is you should buy some crypto from me at a more expensive rate than I paid, which is a normal thing to happen. Yeah. Like, it doesn't do anything. It's not land. It doesn't produce anything. It doesn't create anything. And NFTs are like the next level of this, of literally just like, hey, I got a picture of a farting monkey I spent $1 million for. Do you want it for $2 million? No? I am shocked. Like, we're dumb. Like, we're very dumb. And it's just getting obvious. Like, it's just getting obvious. And not even then. Even other white countries are cursed to some degree. I mean, yeah. The GOP already talked. Of course they are. Yeah. What was the thing I saw? I don't have it right here, but they at their most recent conference, their like CPAC thing or whatever, they actually had a banner up that said something like "We are all." Yeah, it was "We are all domestic terrorists." That's what it said. They had a banner at CPAC that said "We are all domestic terrorists." Like, they're just saying it out loud now, guys. Like, they're just saying it out loud. Like, they're not going to be pretending much longer. Like, they're not going to be like, well, you know, in polite company, one should not say that he's a Nazi in polite company. No, it's breaking apart. They're saying it out loud now. Yeah, the Chinese are just eating popcorn, man. Yeah. The way the Chinese strategy for undercutting America. The Chinese have been trying to undercut America this whole time. They're trying to destroy America. Well, their strategy for doing so is to just sit back and watch the consequences of our actions roll out. They're turning the frogs gay. Absolute favorite thing he ever said. The GOP is transforming itself into open fascist party. Yeah. Yep, guess what's coming to Canada? Via the Conservative Party. I think the difference, I will say this. I think the difference between what's going on in the Conservative Party and what's going on in the Republican Party is that the Conservatives that are jerking off the fascists within the party don't believe it. Whereas the Republicans that are doing it do. Like, people like Lauren Boebert, Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Tyler Greene is a big one. They believe it. Like, they're true believers. Like, there's truth in their convictions. Whereas the fascists that exist in the Conservative Party, and to the degree that the fascists are there, they're not serious. Like, they're not true believers, you know? Like, they're not walking around, like, trying to actually be, like, fucking Hitler people. Like, they recently evicted someone from their party for doing just that. Derek Sloan, right? So, not that I'm trying to be an apologist for the Conservatives, Just trying to be like, it's not so fucking bad. It's not so ridiculous here in Canada. We don't have like, it's not the same kind of open fascism that you're getting in America. Like, what's happening in America is overt. It's very clear cut. I don't see any ads. Lucky man. WF has a new website called Inclusive Capitalism. Fucking Inclusive Capitalism. What a bunch of bullshit. Regarding China building renewables, borrowed and slightly modified thought. Renewables advocate. Renewables will provide power forever once they're built. Yeah. Until they have to be replaced in a couple of decades. Unless you're really old, in which case that's forever for you. But like, if we actually took control of the fossil fuel industry and made decisions about how to use fossil fuels, like, we could be much more elegant about this. Like, we could be much more controlled. And like, yeah, like, no one with a brain in their head is saying never use fossil fuels. Like, no one is saying never use fossil fuels. But like, we're wasting so much. There's so much fucking waste in the system. It's incredible how much waste is in the system. And then on top of that, like, we know what's doing the major amounts of polluting. Like, we know where the major amounts of polluting are coming from. It's coming from these fucking super yachts, and it's coming from these goddamn jets, and it's coming from the military. Like, it's coming from fucking cattle farming. Like, we know where it is. We're just not doing it. Yet, meanwhile, every single major corporation are centrally planned, right? Like, exactly. Like, yeah, the system that we want to organize our own business with, we don't want to be beholden to a system that's exactly that. No. Although, I would suggest that organizing our society on corporate principles is a disaster, but that's fine. Alex Jones for PM of Canada? No. No, thank you. No, thank you. Ugh. Ah, my face is just suddenly itchy. I wanted to point this out, right? Richard D. Wolff, the Socialist Program, Bank of America memo exposes capitalist plot to crash the economy. Right? This is a podcast, so I just want you guys to know this exists. In it, he essentially says what I have said the whole time, right? That there was a memo that leaked from the Bank of America where it explicitly said that their goal is to make life harder for American workers, right? And Richard Wolff is wisely framing that accurately, which is that it's their plot to crash the economy. It's what they want to do, right? You ever see the morph of Trudeau to Fidel? It doesn't work. The timing of it doesn't work. I love that it exists, though. It's funny. It's my absolute favorite conspiracy theory. It's my absolute favorite. Yeah, housing correction could end up being one of the deepest in the past half century, RBC warns. Like, what is happening is that they're raising the interest rate, right? Bankrupting or forcing your mom and dad out of the market. They can't afford their mortgage anymore, right? Forcing anybody who took out a loan, they can't afford it anymore, so they've got to sell. So what's that doing? That's driving the price down, right? The people who don't have to sell, the billionaires, because they have $1 billion, they don't care. They're just pulling their stuff off the market because they're not going to sell at the reduced price. So your mom and dad are selling, right? People our age are selling because the interest rate went up and is going to continue to go up, right? That's going to create a housing correction. And who's going to buy all that housing? Who's going to buy all that housing? Well, it's going to be the billionaires, isn't it? It's going to be the investor class, isn't it? This is all a grift. This is all a grift to continue the process of extraction, to continue getting houses into BlackRock's hand, into 6th Street, into Vanguard's hand, right? Into these big corporate enterprises. That's all this is. And rubes and idiots are going to look at the market. Oh, the line is going down. Housing market going down. That's good. Prices went down, so every turn is fine. Meanwhile, the interest rate's soaring. Right? So you'll never actually take out the loan because it's still like $600,000. Right? It's still enormous. And then on top of that, you got this interest rate that's killing everything. So you're still never going to get that house. You're still never going to put in for it. Right? Who's actually going to get it? Yeah, why is anyone shocked about this? Jerome Powell said as much in the Fed June meeting. Because we're a people who literally think magic is real, dude. Like, that's the truth. That for the last 40 years, billionaires and politicians have been walking around going, just let the free market decide. All you gotta do is allow the free market to decide, and then the meritocracy will hierarchy and justice for all. Freedom. Freedom. And people have gone, those words, I know those words. I like freedom and justice. I think that free markets could be like this. That meritocracy and hierarchies and hard work. And pull up your bootstraps and individualize your dreams. Right? It's just magic. It's just magical thinking that has taught these people to accept any line of bullshit. Any line of bullshit that they can be pitched at, right? Like, if you want to see this, for some reason, I don't know why, I've been seeing this guy Destiny, right? I forget his actual name, but he goes by the handle Destiny. He used to be a StarCraft player, and now he's a political commentator, right? This is exactly this guy. He's like created like a whole framework of magic. He thinks magic is real, that he thinks he lives in a society that's based on meritocracy and hierarchy, right? He thinks that he lives in a magical world where dreams and wishes are true. And when you take a look at his life is basically, he lived in his parents' basement playing video games and was in at the exact right moment to make a bunch of money on exactly the right game, and then turned around and invested it all and now sits on his ass doing podcasts. Like, he's never worked a day in his life, and he thinks he knows how his society works. And that's how a ton of these people are. Right? You got a ton of people who literally, they went to school, they were told, get good grades. And so they went, I will get good grades. What's the point of any of this? Don't ask that question if you want good grades. Okay. And they just went and got the good grades. And then they graduate from that and they go, okay, well, what am I supposed to do now? Well, you should go to university, right? Get good grades at university. Everybody needs a university degree and you should have one. Okay, I'll go to university and get good grades. Right? And then they get the good grades, right? Because they never question the system, right? That's what the system is vetting out, right? It's vetting out disobedience exclusively. It doesn't care about anything else, right? Just do what you're told, right? And then you go get the job, and what are you doing at the job? You're doing what you're told. And now they're at a point where they're like, okay, well, I did everything I was told to do. I went to school. I went to university. I piled on a bunch of school debt that I'm going to pay off when I'm 58. Can I have a house? And they go, oh, yeah, you know what? The market is pretty rough right now, bud. You know? So, but we're going to raise some interest rates, and it's going to drop. And they're looking at him, and they're going like, oh, okay. Because all they've ever done in their life is what they're told. But that's it. They've never done anything other than what they're told. And the hard reality is that if you live in a society full of people who all they've ever done in their lives is what they're told, then once they're confronted with the failing of that system, right? That the reality of this system is that it betrays you in the end, they don't know what to do. And many of them are going to be very angry and are going to turn to the right, right? Which we're seeing it happen in real time. Like, the education system exists to vet for one thing and one thing alone: obedience. That's it. It doesn't care about anything else. If you want a snapshot of what they want to do with housing, then consider why when developers build shipping container microhomes and decide to charge $1,200 to $1,800, Yeah. It isn't about collecting rent. The value is making sure no one can live. Yeah, the Bank of America memo really showcased that the whole point is to disenfranchise people. That's the whole point. That they want to dislocate people. They want people to be in a state of desperation. That's the goal. That's what they want. Right? Because desperate people who are running around trying to survive can't plant their feet and actually fight back. Right? They're less likely to unionize. They're less likely to create social organizations. They're less likely to get involved in politics. They're less likely to actually try to fight back against this system that's designed to destroy them. Right? That's the whole point. But the last thing these guys want is a society of people who are like, oh, this guy's living in this apartment and he lives here for his whole life. They absolutely do not want that. Right? They want to evict, like, they're going to evict people like me two buildings down from me right now. They evicted everybody out of the building. They tore it all apart and they're transferring it into condos. Why are they doing that? So they can charge 3 times the amount, right? So that they can boot out all these people and make them desperate and homeless, right? It's got a lot of ancillary benefits for capitalism if the goal is to destroy the society, which it is, right? Which it is, very clearly. Yeah. Broke up with the ex over this exact issue? Which exact issue? Are you breaking up with your exes over politics? Oh yeah, out of control fires. I haven't even started talking about the fires. Right? Hey, did you guys know that there are wildfires going on? Did you guys know that there are wildfires that are happening all across Canada? There's wildfires in BC. You know what we should do? We should pull up Canada wildfire map. Like, I just don't know what we're going to need to do before we actually, like, admit that it's gotten really obvious. Right? Like, what are we going to do here? Like, when are we actually going to say out loud, hey, it's pretty obvious what's happening. Right? Where have I been keeping my eyes on? I always keep, look at this fucking map, dude. Like, look at this. What do the colors represent? Are they giving us a show table of contents? No. Table of contents goes away. Instructions, map navigation. No. Literally a key. Just a key. Just a key. Like what's I assume red is bad and yellow is slightly better and then green is okay and then I mean blue must be really bad. Like there's wildfires up here. What could blue possibly be? Anyway, yeah. CN fires across Newfoundland. The classic. We're not even really reporting on these fires. Like, we don't really care anymore. I've never visited Banff, and it looks like I never will. Banff's a beautiful place, man. It is. I've been to Banff on several occasions. It's a beautiful place. I'm to the point that I think they want to destroy demand. The goal is to proletarize. I think you're saying polarize the professionals to the point where simply living for a doctor or engineer is breaking out even. Yep, I think that's right. It's enslavement is what they're trying to do. They're trying to make it so that you can't actually get anything done. Yeah, I assume red is bad. Famous last words. Yeah. Yep. The implication for that for garden variety workers is basically to be entirely disenfranchised. I mean, what's happening, Quantum, is that, like, you know what's useful for this conversation? Wealth inequality Canada graph. Sure. Like, this is as good as any, right? This is as good as any. That it used to be right? That wealth was distributed, so it went like this, right? It went up and down, right? Like this wasn't like this. So that meant that if you were a business owner, right, you were probably living right in here, in this area, right? And moreover, you were selling most of your products to most of the people, right? Sure, you had a grouping down here that were less likely to have access, right? And of course, you had a group over here that had enough money that they for sure could partake. So who are the people who are excluded from the economy? Well, it's only about here, really, right? Like poorest in the second percentile. So but let's say 20%, right? 15 to 20% are excluded from regularly coming in and enjoying a burger, something really basic, McDonald's, right? Well, as wealth has steadily shifted, right, in this direction, now it's getting to be, okay, well, it's getting to be 30, 40% now, 50% now. It's getting to be that the line is actually here, and that the only people who are able to even enjoy your product, right, are a smaller group of people. And even more than this, because there's a smaller group of people, that means that you need to raise your prices. And that the people who can come in don't care that you've raised your prices because they've got so much money that it doesn't matter to them, right? Doesn't matter if it's $50 for a cheeseburger if you have $1 billion. Doesn't matter. You're not even asking what the price is. You don't care. Like, you've got so much money that it's irrelevant. That if somebody said, yeah, that cheeseburger is $1,000, you might go, oh, that's interesting, beep, because you want the cheeseburger, right? And steadily as we move forward, it's going to be 40%, 30%, until literally every business model is going to be cater to the 100 people who have all the money. And so the price is going to be so high and extravagant because that's what it's going to need to be set at in order to justify being open for these people to come in. And so the only businesses that will be able to survive will be the ones that these people use. Because they're not going to buy 1 million burgers, right? They're going to buy a burger a week, right? And so all of like your McDonald's are going to shut down, except the ones that these people go to. And the price, and you're going to have an employee standing in what is essentially an empty business for weeks on end with nobody even coming in. And then one day, one guy will come in and buy the burger or buy the shoe or buy whatever. And that'll pay for your whole month or 2 or 3, depending on where you're setting your price. And that's every business. Oh, I see what you're saying. I misread it. Because eventually people just can't even afford it. And once these people can't afford it, once the 50-60% of the society can't even afford it in the first place, well then why are you trying to sell it to them? They can't afford it in the first place. No matter what you set it at, they don't have any money. All of their money goes to rent and food, right? And bills. Like, all of their money goes to bills. And if all your money goes to bills, you don't have any extra stuff. You're not going to go to a Starbucks. You're not going to get a cookie. You're not going to go to a movie. You're not going to do any of that, right? That's all cut out, right? So what's left? The people who actually have the money. Shave that beard. No. I've got a shampoo. When it gets itchy like this, I can go, I got a shampoo. I'm just going to go have a shower and get that shampoo in there. And cures it right up. I'm so glad that I got the shampoo too, because like I actually do want a beard. I think I look, I think I want the beard. I look better with the beard. I think it's super on brand. And I've got this great shampoo that just takes the itchiness right away. So in 20 minutes, I'm going to go take a shower and I'll be fine. Yeah, extraction from the poor to the rich will never end. Yeah, let chaos reign. Yeah, exactly. And they're not scared of the public because they can fly away if the public decides to wake up. I mean, they are scared of the public because the public can still, like, while I think fundamentally you're right, like, we'll never get our hands on these guys. Like, we'll never get them into a prison cell where they belong. Like, that'll never happen. But we can definitely get control of the means of production. We can definitely get control of the society. Like, we can make it so that they can no longer be influential. Like, that can definitely happen. Right? And they're scared of that. Right? They're scared of that. Because if they don't have any influence on the society, then they can't get off on spreading suffering the way that they do. Yeah, speaking of, right? North Carolina school district planning to put AR-15 in every school in the event of another school shooting. I don't know why we can't find any teachers. Why can't we get any teachers for $20,000 a year with an AR-15 in their hand protect our children? Like, it just keeps getting worse. Yeah? Like, it just when I think that we've reached a new low, just when I think we've reached, like, the bottom of this barrel, right? Yep. Just when I think we've reached the bottom of this barrel, we find a way to go lower. Like, this is the kind of thing that, like, The Onion would say, like, 20 years ago, The Onion would say this shit. They'd be like, haha, Americans propose arming teachers with AR-15s, haha. School to prison pipeline, any percentage speed run, yeah. You wonder why. Like, the system is generating these shooters. It's generating them. It's generating prisoners, and it's generating shooters. Because, like, if you're a person who knows that you're going into a dead end, like, you know you're going into a dead end, right? And you know that your options are prison or grinding homelessness, right? And you could probably see it coming, right? Like, if you're a 15-year-old, 16-year-old kid, 17-year-old kid about to graduate from one of these institutions, right? It's pretty clear what's going to happen to you on the other side, right? It's pretty obvious. Your options are prison, crime, which leads to prison, or the military, right? Or just fucking dying in the streets. Sounds like easily giving a shooter a weapon, yeah. And, like, is it any small wonder? Like, is it any small wonder that a kid decides, fuck this. Fuck this nonsense. I'm not doing any of this. And then turns on the very institution that purported itself to be a benefit? Right? One would assume that an institution like this would try to protect people from this sort of stuff, but that's not right. And then once you realize, I can't imagine what it would be like being a 15, 16-year-old kid realizing what the education system actually is in America. Actually having that moment of recognition of, like, oh shit, this exists to funnel obedient, compliant rubes into demonic enterprises to destroy this place. That's the purpose of this institution. It serves no other purpose. The whole idea that we're educating people to live better lives and all that, that's just nonsense. That's just nonsense. And for many of these kids in the United States, something like, yeah, $80,000 debt for a simple degree, when you can't bankrupt out of the debt, right? When you've got no fallback position, right? You're basically just saying, yeah, you need to be compliant, obedient, rich, and smart enough to actually check the box, right? Like, that's what it is. And being a 15, 16-year-old kid, Yeah. Like, yeah. I'm not gonna go to the fucking overseas and kill people. Like, I've seen Apocalypse Now. Like, I've seen these fucking movies. Cousin ended up with $250,000 in debt at the end of med school in California. And you know what you end up with, Tinker? Right? You end up with less doctors. You end up with less nurses. You end up with less educated people. So you just end up with a shithole society. Right? That's continuously falling behind. Right? Like, we're an incredibly shithole society. The idea that we're plunging doctors into debt on this scale, it's an abomination. No rational society would believe that this is a smart thing to do. That the narrative of, oh, you'll take out the loan and then you'll pay back the loan, like, it's bullshit. On the face of it, it's obviously bullshit. Like, if you actually want a strong, robust healthcare system with a society that's full of doctors and nurses, then you should be paying for them to go to school. You should just let them go to school. The debt turns them to prescription fillers to max income. Yeah. Like, he ended up being an eye surgeon, but the debt was extra anxiety on him. Yeah, for sure. And, like, God help him if anything happened. Like, God help him if anything happened. Right? Like, the smallest hiccup in this plan. The smallest possible hiccup. Right? And then he's just like a normal dude with $250,000 of debt. That's all it is. Can't be an eye surgeon if you lose a hand. Right? Just wanted to point this guy out. Mick Lynch. You don't know who this guy is? Seek this guy out. This guy is spitting facts. Spitting truth and spitting facts. He is a trade union organizer in the UK. They're actually allowing him on television because he's become influential enough that they can't simply ignore him. And he's just spitting facts. Just outright calling out the media, calling out these frauds and losers for what they are. Yeah, what if you lose an eye? Yeah. Taiwan not a part of U.S. but Chinese territory, says Chinese foreign minister. Just to remind you that this is still happening. Isn't that fun? Isn't that fun? Oh yeah, I definitely wanted to read this. Oh well. Here's yet another confirmation. The economic consequences of major tax cuts for the rich. The abstract. The last 50 years has seen a dramatic decline in taxes on the rich across the advanced democracies. There is still fervent debate in both political and academic circles about the economic consequences of this sweeping change in tax policy. This article contributes to this debate by utilizing a newly constructed indicator of taxes on the rich to identify all instances of major tax reduction on the rich in 18 Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development countries between 1965 and 2015. We then estimate the average effects of these major tax reforms on key macroeconomic aggregates. We find tax cuts for the rich lead to higher income inequality in both the short and medium term. In contrast, such reforms do not have any significant effect on economic growth or unemployment. Our results therefore provide strong evidence against the influential political economic idea that tax cuts for the rich trickle down to boost the wider economy. Yep. Watson, there's going to be a debate until the day of the revolution. Straight up. Debate. Right? There's always going to be a debate. That if it was up to the ruling class, we'd still have a guy that actually researched climate change, oil executive. That's the dynamic that they want. They wanted that forever. Right? It just came to the point that they had to concede finally. Like, the media had to actually say climate change is real finally, because people were abandoning them, and still are, rightfully. These institutions are utterly worthless. The only reason anyone should read the National Post, the Globe and Mail, CTV, Global, CNN, MSNBC, Fox, any of these corporate-owned entities, the only reason anybody should pay any attention is to see what the liars, frauds, and psychopaths are saying, right? So there's a reason why the vast majority of the public are checking out of these places, because they know what they are. They know that these places are just demonic enterprises designed exclusively to lie to you. And if anybody is watching these sincerely, you got to immediately, you got to get on that right away. It's the number one thing. You can't talk to them about anything else. Like, for real. This is the lesson that I've learned with the people in my life. That if you find out that anybody is watching any of this stuff with any amount of sincerity, I really like that Rachel Maddow. That Rachel Maddow, she really said something that I really like, right? If you hear any of that shit, you can't talk to them about politics. You can't talk to them about culture. You can't talk to them about any of that. The only thing that you can and should talk to them about is, why are they listening to frauds and liars? Why are they taking frauds and liars and psychopaths seriously? Because it's the only thing that matters. The politics between you and that person is exclusively, why are you allowing yourself to be deceived openly by obvious grifters who are obviously lying? And if they try to get off into like Russiagate, or if they try to get off into any other stuff, nope. Why are you listening to liars and grifters who are paid to lie and grift you? It's the only thing to talk to these guys about. There's nothing else of value. I guess in the long term, it devolves into a fascist society. Exactly. So if you're the rich, it's good, right? Can't wait for the revolution. Why wait? Yeah, because Western people are lobotomized, aren't going to do a revolution. Yeah. That's my big fear too, Oddity. Like, I think about this a lot. I do think that there is a desire. I just think people still want to believe that we can talk our way out of it. People still want to believe that we can just go to a ballot box. That's really what it is. People still want to believe that the system of capital and the electoral systems are capable of responding rationally. They still want to believe it. And there's no evidence for it. There's no suggestion that it should be taken seriously. But again, we live in a very magical, superstitious society where we believe that in wishes and dreams, we think that magic is going to solve these problems. And there's no... Because to take the next step, right, means a genuine sacrifice of some sort, right? Even if that sacrifice is just stepping out into the unknown, right? Like, that's very scary for a lot of these people. Because a lot of people can be convinced. A lot of people could be convinced just by looking around and going like, well, you know, I still have a place to live. You know, things are sort of stable in this regard, right? So it's why I say again and again, right? Capitalism will be the thing that's the most convincing. The most convincing thing is going to be capitalism itself. And we just have to be here pounding the drum, reminding people of what it's actually going to take. So that once the negative impacts of capitalism actually begin to affect them more seriously, instead of being a bit more abstract, which for a lot of people it sort of is, although I would argue that you're sacrificing your entire life for a pursuit that's designed to destroy you. It's just people don't want to believe that or accept that. They want to believe that they're doing something meaningful. They want to believe that the job they're doing is actually useful, right? They want to believe in magic. And so they do. And eventually they won't be able to. And we've got to be here for them when that happens. Because if we're not here for them, the fascists will be. Have you talked about how the FBI raided Trump's Mar-a-Lago? Yeah, I don't really care. I gotta tell you, dude. Like, I'm sure they did. And I'm sure they got some stuff. I'm sure of it. You know? Like, the FBI is itself an enormously corrupt terrorist organization. So the fact that this terrorist organization invaded Trump's Mar-a-Lago and like probably got some stuff or whatever, just means they'll bribe him with it or blackmail him with it, and Trump, you know, will, when he's the president again, they'll come to him and be like, "Hey, we could release this embarrassing information," and he'll be like, "Oh, okay, I'll do this other thing," right? Like it's all just a vanity project, right? That's all it is. Like it's not the virtuous Federal Bureau of Investigation going in and trying to seek justice against the Trump administration's nefarious Nazism or any of this. It's a domestic terrorist organization by the name of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, right? Trying to get dirt on the leader of a Nazi cult. That's what it is, right? So that they can use that dirt against him when they need to. Trump's outlived his usefulness. The GOP probably want a competent fascist now. DeSantis fits that bill. I don't think Trump's outlived his usefulness. The one thing that Trump brings to the table that these other guys don't actually have is unity. Trump actually is bringing the numbers in. Like, he is the front runner in the Republican Party. He is the person who is viewed as the leader of the Republican Party by the voters of the Republicans. So, why risk it? And like, I think the polling for Biden couldn't be worse. Hillary is laughing and cackling right now. I mean, probably over a cauldron. Although I shouldn't say that. That's an insult to witches. I should never insult a witch like that by insisting that Hillary has something to do with them. No, Hillary is more of a like she's more of a like sucking Satan's cock kind of person. Like, she's not really interested in witchcraft. I think she's more interested in like overt like demonic satanic rituals and worship like that. Like, it's just like viciously demonic. Someone like Hillary Clinton being in control. Speaking of openly fascist, anyone see his speech at CPAC? Triumph of the Will, anyone? Yeah. No, dude, they're being open about it. They're like, it's not like like, it's gonna get way worse. Like, it's gonna get way worse. Like, I'm really trying to think about, like, what's the thing that I'm really preparing for? You know, what's the event that I'm really preparing for? And oh yeah, that's very true. Trump's speech. When the ruling class turns fascist, it's a sign of weakness, not strength. Yeah. No, they're afraid. Right? Of course. An animal backed into a corner is its most violent. Right? Like, that's what's happening. It's when an animal is backed into a corner, it's at its most violent and its most dangerous. And these guys are definitely, yeah. And these guys are definitely feeling the heat and definitely feeling scared. And I think the thing that they're most scared of is not necessarily an upswell of like political revolution. I think they're most afraid of each other. I think that that's what they're most afraid of. That when the whole thing starts coming down, and they know it will, because they're doing it, right? When the whole thing starts coming down, they want to be on the right side of it, right? And they know that they could possibly not be, right? It's going to get very Game of Thronesy. It's going to get very like, oh, hey, did you hear Ted Cruz got assassinated today? Like, it's going to get very like, dun 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 dun. Like, daggers in the dark, the blackness, all that shit, right? Like, people are going to be trying to hoover up family fortunes. Like, people are going to try to do hostile takeovers on one another. You're going to see stuff like Tesla, Elon Musk's value is going to plummet by like 300% or something, right? People are going to realize that he's a fraud, or that what he's doing is not benefiting anything, or that people don't care about him in this moment because the whole thing's collapsing, right? So Elon Musk's value is going to plummet. Everyone's going to stop paying attention to him because nobody cares about him anyway, right? He's not actually doing anything. He's just a novelty like NFTs or crypto, right? Someone like Jeff Bezos is just going to consolidate as much power as he possibly can. Like, Gates is going to lean on the land that he's bought up, and he's just going to become a land baron. Like, and meanwhile, these hack fraud politicians are all just going to cut each other's throats, trying to maintain their positions of power and trying to jockey into a position so that they will be the next leader. Right? Don't forget how petty these politics actually are. Like, we're all sitting here being like, oh, it's probably DeSantis. You know, DeSantis, everybody's got their eye on DeSantis, all this kind of stuff. Yeah, right. Cersei Lannister is not going to let some bitch from Highgarden swing on in and seize her glory when it's her day to shine in the sun, right? Like, none of that shit is going to go down the way that we're thinking it's going to go down. That, like, right now, Trump's rise seems inevitable. It seems like a thunderstorm, right? That's just rolling on in. But what happens after him, right? And if you're one of these politicians, if you're like a Mitch McConnell, right? These guys don't plan on anything except this, their own personal power, right? And if somebody like Trump Jr. needs to stab someone like DeSantis in the back, literally, in order to get the nomination to be the president of the United States, he'll do it. Like, you are going to see, after Trump, right, and even during Trump, you're going to see politics like you have never seen before. You are going to see just an absolute fucking internal bloodbath of absolute betrayal and purging and nonsense. Because a fascist organization that's scuttling around attempting to replace its fascist leader in order to install another fascist to continue this journey of fascism only respects violence and terror. And so they'll do it to themselves. It's going to be crazy to watch. And on that note, I don't actually buy into this, by the way, Watson. I suspect if Trump wins again, it might be the last election the U.S. ever has. Like, that sort of pretends like the U.S. elections matter very much in the first place. They don't really. Like, they don't. Like, you get the fascist with the blue pin, or you get the fascist with the red pin, right? And It's all just theater. It always has been. The only thing these guys have ever responded to is us surrounding the halls of power. It's the only thing they've ever responded to. And on that note, always remember, you are a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars gaslighting you, convincing you that you're just the good little commodity they need you to be. Revolt. Rebel. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.